Lord of Mysteries. Survival from the Secret Doll Chapter 271 to 285. The patient in the ward was gone, and the passerby at 47 Golden Rose Street and the one seen on the road had also died. Klein hurriedly returned to his ward, took off his hospital gown and put on his regular clothes. Without waiting for Pettiglow, Tang, and the others to come and visit him in jail, he left Street Peter's Hospital, preparing to call for help. Walking out of the main entrance of St. Peter's Hospital, Klein immediately boarded one of the many private carriages at the hospital entrance. This wasn't the time to worry about saving money. He gave the coachman an address, and the carriage headed towards 32 Red Rose Street, the Blackthorn Security Company. Just arriving at 32 Red Rose Street and pushing open the door, Klein saw Daly, Dunn, Leonard, and the others in the lobby on the first floor, seemingly also planning to go out. Klein, you shouldn't still be at St. Peter's at this time, what happened? Dunn looked at the panting Klein and asked first. It's like this, Captain. Klein had already thought up his explanation on the way, and quickly told them everything he knew. Because it was already determined that the cause of these things couldn't be official beyonders, Klein told them everything about the nightmares he'd had these past few days, where he saw people in his nightmares dying in reality, except for the divination above the gray fog. Leonard. Dunn turned his head to look at Leonard, who was wearing a monocle. Leonard thought for a moment and said, there was indeed a rather serious traffic accident near Golden Rose Street this morning, and people died. Pettiglow went to handle it. Dunn, Ed, then immediately said, we're going back to St. Peter's. Daly, you go to Khoi University and inquire about the current situation of the thief who was arrested before. Pettiglow has already gone to handle things at Golden Rose Street. Leonard, tell Cohenley about Klein's situation and have him inform Pettiglow, then come to St. Peter's Hospital. Okay, Captain. Dunn calmly issued the orders. Daly chuckled lightly. What an impatient man. Okay, sometimes, quickness isn't without its benefits. Dunn, Leonard, and Klein were silent for a few seconds, then none of them picked up Daly's words, and they quickly took action. Leonard pinched a monocle in his left eye socket. The monocle reflected Klein's face, which was pale and looked like he was recovering from a serious illness. The corners of his mouth always had that smile that made Klein feel a little uncomfortable, but Klein couldn't care about these things right now. Dunn straightened his hat, then said to Klein in an unusually calm tone. Let's go. Street Peter's Hospital, basement level, morgue. Patient name, Zoltan Fleck, Tingen City resident, 37 years old. Admitted due to a serious lung disease. After several treatments at St. Peter's Hospital, he was almost recovered, but suddenly his stomach disease worsened in the early hours of today. After the doctor's rescue, he died due to the simultaneous outbreak of multiple complications. The time of death. Hearing this, Dunn's eyes became somewhat obscure, consistent with the time of the runaway carriage accident on Golden Rose Street this morning, which killed a passerby. This was the information of the problematic patient from St. Peter's Hospital in Klein's nightmare. They went to the basement to check the body, but because they weren't professional forensic doctors, they could only conduct basic mystical examinations of the body and examine the detailed information of the patients at St. Peter's Hospital. During this period, Klein also tried to use his methods as a diviner, but the results of the divination only proved that this was really just an ordinary, unremarkable corpse. It was interfered with, or, this was originally just an ordinary, unremarkable corpse. As a diviner, Klein quickly understood the problem. Fortunately, Captain Dunn didn't doubt what he said. Divination isn't omnipotent. If the chosen divination statement itself has certain problems, or if there are anti-divination, anti-prophecy beyonders interfering, or if the content of the divination itself is a fact, but there are still certain problems behind this fact, then these can't be determined through divination. As Klein thought about this, he felt as if something in his body suddenly shattered. The potion has been digested significantly. Klein immediately realized something. Is this because I summarized the first diviner acting principle? He didn't expect that the signs of significant digestion would appear here. Klein thought with some complexity. And soon, 2 more fresh corpses were sent to the morgue on the basement level of St. Peter's Hospital. With them were Pettiglow, as well as Leonard Mitchell, who wore a monocle and seemed to hide some secrets, in addition to the medical staff. The incident happened very suddenly. We checked the coachman and didn't find any other problems. It seems that this really was just a coincidence. I'm afraid this isn't a coincidence. Dunn said in a low voice, his gray eyes reflecting the three upright corpses in front of him. The specific appearances of these people just appeared in Klein's nightmare, and then they died in this way, with an almost inevitable coincidence. The timing is really too precise. Leonard pinched his monocle, hinting at something. The Golden Rose Street incident happened one moment, and the patient at St. Peter's died of a sudden worsening illness the next. Indeed, rather than a coincidence, this is more like destroying evidence after the problem was noticed. Pettiglow also pondered, killing the problematic people in this way, with a certain degree of coincidence. This is like the actions of the third force that appeared in the notebook theft case. He looked at Klein and suddenly asked, "Klein, what are your thoughts?" As the first Beander to discover these problems, Klein had a certain right to speak on this matter. Moreover, as a diviner with high spirituality, Klein should be able to detect the problem faster than them. Just like you said, Klein paused for a moment before continuing, maybe they realized that someone had discovered their problem, and then they made them die under various seemingly normal coincidences. This is very similar to the methods of the mastermind who can manipulate coincidences in the notebook loss case that we previously speculated, but I don't think it's that mastermind. Because these people aren't ordinary people. Dunn pondered, yes, your idea might be right. These people, no, these corpses themselves, likely possessed some sort of anomaly. Once detected, they died, severing the thread. Just then, the door to the morgue opened once more. Klein looked over and saw Dunn, Daly, and an Miskatonic University investigator he'd met before enter. These three individuals have certain issues, and we will conduct a thorough investigation, Tang said as he walked in. Whether it's coincidence or inevitability, whether they're living people or marionettes, a thorough examination will undoubtedly help us pierce through some of the fog surrounding this matter. After all, Emperor Rosal once wrote in his novels, every step leaves a trace. Under the professional examination of the Miskatonic University investigator, Klein and the others quickly learned the answer. They are marionettes, and they have been marionettized, meaning they have been dead for quite some time, the Miskatonic University investigator explained in a dry voice, like sandpaper rubbing against glass. From a mystical perspective, all marionnettists, that is, sequence 5 of the seer pathway, the puppets they control, their spirits die the moment those people become marionettes. Even if these marionettes maintain normal brain function, organ activity, blood flow, and breathing, making it almost impossible to detect any issues, experienced corpse collectors with high enough sequence can still discover abnormalities within these seemingly normal physiological phenomena. At the same time, the marionettes' own spirit world, consciousness, and thoughts undergo irreversible changes. Their fate is sealed at the moment they become marionettes. If it involves the spirit world, fate, or other similar matters, such as the audience pathway or monsters, Beyonders can also distinguish between those who appear normal, whether they are living people or marionettes. Of course, this is under the condition that the marionettist's level and abilities do not involve extremely high-ranking beings. For Beyonders of that level, perfectly concealing the body, mind, fate, consciousness, and all possible changes is not a problem. Daly was clearly a gatekeeper, who couldn't tell whether the person in front of her was a human or a marionette. The Miskatonic University investigator, of course, didn't say such a thing. He looked at Dunn Smith, the captain of the Nighthawks of Tingen City, and said, "There's more than just the trickmaster who was caught before among the outsiders of the seer pathway in Tingen City. There may even be a Sequence 3 saint who has infiltrated. Does he have any reaction?" Dunn asked, frowning. A Sequence 3 saint poses a certain threat to Tingen University, the Nighthawks, the Punishers, and Miskatonic University. The Miskatonic University investigator shook his head and said in that somewhat hoarse voice, "Unless it involves the survival of the entire Tingen City, he will not intervene in matters of this level. That is, at most, he will provide ritualistic magic support, just like when he previously used his authority to create a closed-off space filled with errors to help Klein recall certain events." Dunn looked at Tang, seemingly remembering something, and asked, "What about the thief who was caught outside Tingen University before? You should have confirmed the thief's situation, right? How is he? Before you reminded us, he fell into the Sunwell mine. Now, he's probably become part of the ore," Tang said, shaking his head and shrugging. "We are not clear about the situation in the deep layers of the Sunwell mining area in Ramde town, which is located in the northwest direction, but according to the information we have recorded, there is almost no possibility of survival for those who fall down. Become part of the ore." Klein looked at Tang, who maintained a smile but didn't elaborate. Dunn refocused his gaze on Klein. Klein shook his head and said sincerely, "There should be other people in my nightmares, but I don't know if I can still have that dream now that I've been noticed." Dreams can also be a medium for divination in mysticism. If that high-ranking seer has already noticed this and performed corresponding anti-divination, you most likely won't be able to dream, Tang said. As a meander of the seer pathway himself, he clearly had the right to speak. Then, seemingly thinking of something else, Tang continued to add, speaking to Klein, "If you do dream, the problem will be even bigger. Because that would mean that the dream definitely hides a deep trap that would inevitably lead to the death of the seer who discovers the problem through dream divination." Klein understood this almost immediately. Of course, as long as he doesn't dream or subconsciously perform divination, he won't touch the trap. Beyonders of the Church of the Evernight are most skilled in manipulating dreams. Midnight. The quiet, silent first basement of St. Peter's Hospital, in the underground corpse storage. Faint rustling sounds eerily echoed from several ice coffins. In the empty underground corpse storage, the doors of several morgue freezers opened even more eerily, from the inside. The already deceased lay flat in the freezers. Their eyes opened, their fingers clawing at the top of the ice coffins, inching themselves out little by little. 3 somewhat stiff corpses swayed as they climbed out of the cabinets. As they sat up from the ice freezers, their stiff feet landing on the ground, a chilling smile slowly spread across their expressionless faces. "Now, we have no choice but to replace the skull, huh? Yeah, what a pity." But before they could even leave the underground corpse storage, beams of scorching light shone upon them. Dunn stood in the corner, expressionlessly preparing to pull the remaining spirituality of these corpses, which seemed to have turned into evil spirits, into a dream. Illuminated by the light, the 3 corpses revealed burn-like wounds as if scorched by the radiance of the sun. They widened their eyes, almost popping out of their sockets, and venomously, hatefully looked at the Nighthawks and Miskatonic University investigators who had been lying in ambush here at some unknown time. They roared and howled, but trapped in the scorching, blinding light emitted by the sun they had no choice but to curl up and protect their most important heads. "The spirits have turned into evil spirits, and the bodies have become living corpses," Dunn said to Tang beside him. Tang nodded and said with a smile, "Indeed, that's the case, Captain Dunn. Your intuition is truly sharp." At the same time, in the distant depths of the universe, surrounded by countless stars, light years away. This place is tranquil, serene, seemingly excluded from all living things. Dark, lightless, as if even time and space have fallen into a deathly stillness, the stars merely glittering points of light, minute and insignificant. Here, because there is no air, there is no sound, because there is no life, it appears withered and barren. This is a stellar system composed of 2 stars, 7 planets, and numerous small celestial bodies. In the boundless universe, which has existed for billions of light years, there will always be such celestial systems of various kinds, because the universe itself is a real and vast world formed by countless random numbers that cannot be easily defined. But this place does not merely retain naturally formed things. This is an absurd and bizarre stellar system composed of rotten insect corpses, shattered spaceships, debris from various celestial bodies, scarlet planets that seem to drip with blood, verdant blue planets that seem to contain countless liquids, and countless strange and bizarre things, all illuminated and heated by 2 stars. Here, there are dense traces left by the interference of a great being. Tang, wearing casual clothes, was surrounded by grayish-white mist of unknown origin. He pinched the monocle in his right eye socket and looked at several planets not far away. In his black eyes, as dark as an unfathomable ocean, the reflections of those several azure planets were mirrored along with the monocle. Beside him was the corpse of a monster, already dead, its body pieced together, its head with countless hideous tentacles and huge abdomen grotesquely grafted together. Even exposed to the vacuum environment full of radiation and devoid of air, the corpse did not change. The monster, which should have died, was in such an environment, its head clearly twisted off, its body parts grafted together at bizarre angles and in a strange manner, yet its flesh was still squirming, as if it had not truly died. A race that believes in the fallen mother goddess is really hard to kill. Tang glanced sideways at this undeniably ugly monster, waved his hand casually, and sent the thing into the system warehouse, preparing to decompose it into materials for certain rituals. The universe is boundless, and countless powerful outer gods are drawn to the solar system by the primordial one, but in this universe, races that believe in these outer gods have received their blessings, and have obtained extraordinary characteristics are equally numerous. And for a Sequence 1 Angel King who secretly bypassed the barrier protection through that hidden, black hole, connecting Earth to a certain node in the depths of the universe, arriving in such a place was like a fish entering water or a monkey being locked in a peach orchard, unrestrained. After all, the struggle between faith and race has never ended. Killing and exterminating races that believe in the Great Mother will only be seen as a reasonable struggle for resources and territory by races that believe in the Overseer of Stars, resulting in sacrifice. As long as he doesn't directly encounter those angels who believe in other outer gods, even if it's just an image from the historical void, with the authority of a Sequence 1 Angel King, Tang can completely teach the alien races a lesson in what it means to be a terrifying upright ape. And that monster that had just been sent into the system warehouse and was about to be made into materials was one of the spoils of war under such circumstances. A millennium of cosmic wandering has allowed him to accumulate a lot of knowledge about the outer gods and the races that believe in them. These are all experience. After finishing up, Tang once again pinched the monocle in his right eye socket, which also originated from an image within the historical void. This is not the uniqueness of the seer pathway, but rather a clever way to borrow the mystical symbolism possessed by the uniqueness. For beyonders who play with history and time, using this method to borrow things of this level is common practice. Under the reflection of the monocle, Tang stretched out his hand, reaching into the fog of history, seemingly trying to drag something out. But what seemed to be in the fog of history was an object of extremely terrifying weight. His arm tensed, trembling. Tang stalemated with that extremely terrifying object for a moment, and finally reluctantly withdrew his hand that was trying to drag the object. Potion digestion, 67.3%. Attempt failed. Simply relying on the authority of 2 Angel Kings, even with the partial power bestowed by the Supreme One, Sequence 0, is still not enough. After making another attempt, confirming that the current potion digestion progress of the main body still could not meet the minimum required for the plan, Tang tilted his head and looked at the void beside him. Beside him, a tall man wearing strange, cold, metallic armor that enveloped his entire body emerged. The shimmering black helmet on the armor's head disappeared, revealing a handsome man with hard facial lines, short, rigid blood-red hair, and eyes of iron black. "How is your Conqueror potion digestion going?" Brooks, the war bishop of the never-ending theater, who had advanced to Conqueror, a Sequence 1 of the Red Priest pathway, had already advanced during the long millennium. And for a Conqueror, conquering the stars and seas of the vast universe is also a way to digest the potion. Digestion is complete. Tang nodded and then said, afterward, "Let's go back to Ruin. Our Lord of Mysteries needs some combat skills. You know, I just simply like hanging people up as marionettes. I haven't considered melee combat for years. There should be more than just this, right?" Brooks obviously knew his marionettist's interests very well, even if this was just an image from the historical void. "Ah, yes. George III over in Backland is planning to use the witch sect to help him become the Black Emperor. Go kill those witches of the witch sect, take their place, and negotiate with George III to get the next Conqueror potion from Augustus. Cooperating with George III for the birth of the Black Emperor and the Visionary." Brooks asked. "That's my current plan. After all, I have to consider the problem of that old fogey Adam. Isn't this a foregone conclusion with an ending that can already be seen, that George III's plot will inevitably fail or something?" Tang shrugged indifferently, "But in the current situation, I still prefer to deal with some smart people." Brooks was silent for a moment, then nodded, "Okay, I understand." The Conqueror turned his gaze to the vibrant planets not far away. "In your plan, you're treating this place as, even if the Supernova Dominator agrees to this, we still need to be wary of him. After all, the trustworthiness of an old one is infinitely close to zero." "That's the old schemer for you," Tang said, pinching the monocle in his right eye socket. "Although I want to say, if you suspect someone, don't use them, if you use someone, don't suspect them, but even if the Supernova Dominator goes back on his word and stabs me in the back. So what? It's not like he wouldn't turn traitor and stab the Supernova Dominator in the back when the time comes. For collaborators who aren't his secret puppets, he either turns them into his underlings or hangs them up as secret puppets. Trust is impossible. Even the ancient Supernova Dominator, who seems trustworthy so far, is the same. Of course, Tang has the same attitude towards Adam. If he gets the chance, he will definitely hang Adam up as a secret puppet. After all, this plan involves multiple high-sequence beings, and the authorities involved must at least include fooling, knowledge, history, error, observation, fate, and other fields. Judging by the current progress, it will probably only be possible after the plan on Earth is completed, the Lord of the Mysteries is born, and I reach the level above high sequence. After all, above high sequence is the old one level. At that time, a natural authority brought about by transmigrating can be utilized to the greatest extent. The time span is too long, and the breadth of inclusion is too much, there will be many variables. Variables are also an inevitable part of destiny and fate. But indeed, I always feel that I should think of a way to kill the circle of fate first, otherwise the authority pointing in this direction will also point to the circle of fate. Tang pondered for a moment, then said as if he had remembered something, "Oh, right, when you go back, take that hot pot with you. Rub a bit of that 3-in-1 persona, and put together the necessary prerequisites for becoming a Red Priest first. After all, in my plan, the Hermit, the Red Priest, and the Fool are to become gods at the same time." Saying this, Tang looked again at this stellar system grafted from countless bizarre things, twisted, and filled with errors and fallacies. As for this place, this will be the most stable anchor point given to the Lord of the Mysteries at the time of his birth. The stars are about to return to their positions, and the end is about to come. At that time, the most magnificent legendary magic of this epoch, spanning thousands of years, will also debut simultaneously. Tingen City, St. Peter's Hospital. After collecting the spirits of the 3 corpses, and after the bodies that had turned into living corpses were restored to their original corpses through the mystical purification produced by the Sunwell ore, Tang made a divination with a coin. Well, the problem has been cleaned up, and there is no such thing as sudden resuscitation. The Miskatonic University investigator stepped forward to examine one of the corpses. Suddenly, the investigator's expression became strange for a moment. Before they were burned to death by the Sunwell ore, did they undergo a process of requiem or purification? No. Dunn thought for a moment, then said very certainly. The corpse examiner noticed the problem and asked back, "Is there a problem?" The Miskatonic University investigator pointed to one of the corpses, still speaking in a slightly hoarse voice. Before this person became a dead corpse and was illuminated and purified by the light of the sun well, he had undergone a certain degree of purification from the sun pathway. This is a corpse that has been purified before, and after this purification, the corpse still became a living corpse. Klein, wearing a hospital gown, poked his head out from behind Dunn. He saw the charred corpse that had been purified beyond recognition and barely recognized that it was the patient from St. Peter's Hospital who had died from the aggravation of his illness. Maybe it's some sealed artifact from the sun pathway, or a Beander from the sun pathway, Tang said, glancing at the charred corpse that had been burned black and was unrecognizable. Maybe the purification wasn't thorough. There are quite a few Beyonders from the sun pathway here at St. Peter's. Maybe they just happened to run into it, were purified, and left traces. After all, secret puppets themselves are not afraid of purification. Although they are dead corpses, the spirit threads of the secret puppets are being manipulated, so they cannot be regarded as ordinary, active living corpses and undead. The Nighthawks and the Miskatonic University investigator quickly conducted a more detailed inspection of the scene. After finding nothing wrong, they planned to go their separate ways. Klein and Tang walked in the corridor late at night, where there was no one else except the night shift doctors and nurses. After the two got into the elevator, Tang instructed, "Although the notes have been recovered, you still need to be careful. Since these 3 people are secret puppets, there is a possibility that others are also secret puppets." To this, Dunn, Klein, and others all agreed. "Isn't there any way to tell whether they are secret puppets or living people?" Klein asked with some doubt. "Yes," Tang answered very simply, "in the field of ritual magic, involving viewing the fate of others, let me think, if the object pointed to is a mendicant monk, possessing the extraordinary ability to observe the fortunes of others. Using ritual magic involving this aspect, you can judge whether a person is a secret puppet by checking their fate. After all, the fate of the secret puppet itself has stopped at the moment it was turned into a secret puppet. But unfortunately, this kind of ritual magic cannot be popularized on a large scale. In judging from the current resident population of Tingen City, although a large-scale screening in a short period of time is not a problem, for high-sequence beings of the seer pathway, this kind of inspection can be avoided with enough time and preparation." Mendicant monk. What Klein was more curious about was this. Sounds like a potion name. But this is not among the names of the low and mid-sequence potions of the 22 divine pathways. Is it the name of a high-sequence potion of a certain pathway? This is the sequence 8 potion name of a certain pathway, but not a pathway in the conventional sense. Tang didn't say much and quickly changed the subject. The two quickly arrived at Klein's ward. He smiled. You should be able to get a good night's sleep tonight, if there are no accidents. But, well, if there are no accidents. An accident will happen soon. Night. The crimson moon seeped in from the window into the tidy and clean hospital room, shining on the clean floor, reflecting a faint reddish light. Klein lay on the hospital bed, not awake. He seemed to have fallen into a deeper slumber. Apart from the footsteps of the nurses on duty, there were no other sounds in the corridor. The entire St. Peter's Hospital seemed unusually quiet after entering the night, and in Klein's ward, a faint, not obvious, grayish-white mist seemed to shuttle through the barrier between the spirit world and the real world, permeating the entire ward. Under the diffusion of the crimson moonlight and the thin gray mist, Klein's breathing became heavier, and the corners of his forehead slowly furrowed into a Sichuan shape, as if he was confused by what he dreamed of. He seemed to be dreaming about those incredible things again, and this caused obvious traces of fluctuations in his mental state. Klein sat on the hospital bed, his eyes staring blankly through the window, seeing an incomparably huge red moon outside the window. That was a moon that was bigger and rounder than a normal red moon. No, the feeling this moon gave Klein was not like a moon at all, it was more like a huge eyeball oozing blood. Klein was horrified by his own association, but soon, he had adjusted his emotions and looked around. Seeing that this was still the ward he had stayed in for several nights, Klein's heart skipped a beat. Here, is it still a dream? What's going on? Captain should have taken care of it. Logically speaking, I shouldn't be dreaming, right? He turned his head and looked towards the position of the ward door. At this time, there was no longer the sound of heavy objects being dragged outside the door, just like the silent patients who had been walking towards the end of the corridor before, they had all rested. But this did not give Klein a sense of security, but made him more vigilant, and made him feel an unspeakable gloom, an unspeakable feeling that made his spine chill. No way. Klein tried to wake himself up. He was a seer, proficient in dream divination, so it was not difficult for him to actively end his dream, but Klein quickly realized that he had no way to easily escape this dream. His self-awakening and self-hypnosis failed, and when he opened his eyes again, it was still the ward with the unbelievably large red moon outside the window. Is this a trap? Is this a trap aimed at me, at the Nighthawks, Tingen University, and Miskatonic University? Is that Sequence 4, or Sequence 3 Saint, going to attack me? But why? Klein couldn't figure it out. He was just a Sequence 9, why would they deal with him like this? Because he was weak in a pushover. But now, Klein didn't have much time to dissect the truth behind this matter. Time passed by every minute and every second. Under this situation, the longer Klein stayed in this place, the harder it would be for him to ensure his safety. After confirming that he could not actively escape the dream, Klein quickly recited in sync, the embodiment of all errors, the goddess of the night, more sublime than the starry sky, more eternal than eternity, but did not receive a corresponding response. This seemed to be an independent, special space, causing Klein to be unable to obtain help from the outside world through the connection of honorific names. Then what about this? Klein quickly calmed down. He lightly got off the hospital bed, quietly, barefoot, stepped on the ground, trying not to make any noise. Then, Klein walked 4 steps backwards, while silently chanting in his heart. Blessed be the profound yellow immortal venerable. Blessed be the profound yellow heavenly sovereign. Blessed be the profound yellow God. Blessed be the profound yellow heavenly venerate. After chanting these 4 honorific names, Klein saw a gray-white mist. Effective. He immediately realized that the connection between himself and the mysterious space above the gray mist had not been severed. Decisively, Klein used this connection to quickly escape his dream, entered the mysterious space above the gray mist, and sat on the high-backed chair symbolizing the Fool. The magnificent palace seemed to have never changed. Klein stayed in this mysterious space, looking at this familiar environment, and he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Very strange ability, weaving dreams. Is this related to the high sequence abilities of the seer pathway? No, there are sealed artifacts in this world. Maybe there are some sealed artifacts that can also achieve the corresponding effect, such as the visionary. After all, the sequence 5 potion name of the visionary pathway is Dream Weaver. In mystical knowledge, dreams are also a concrete manifestation of the subconscious. Klein calmly examined his condition. Then, he tried to simulate the feeling of falling, trying to use this method to directly return to the original ward, escape the strange dream, and wake up in reality. But Klein quickly realized that the place he arrived after falling was still not St. Peter's Hospital in the real world. The huge red moon outside the window seemed to be able to devour the entire starry sky. Klein stared at the red moon, which was so exaggerated and so terrifying, and silently pinched his philtrum, trying to maintain a clear rationality as much as possible. Calm down, Klein, calm down. Since I can enter the gray mist above, it means I haven't been forced into a desperate situation. As long as the nurse who checks the room the next day, or Pettigrew, Tang, and the others find the problem, in Tingen, where there are also high-ranking people, demigods, gods, and angels, the problem can be easily solved. Klein took a deep breath. According to his original plan, he should be cowering above the gray mist now. After all, that is a safe zone. According to Klein's understanding of the gray mist above during this period of time, unless it involves those true gods, it is likely that no extraordinary person can break through the defense of the gray mist and enter that mysterious space. After all, the person who masters the incantation, currently, seems to be only Klein alone, and Miss, Justice, Mr. Hanged Man, also need him to pull people in order to let those people enter the mysterious space above the gray mist. But, Klein quietly opened a corner of the ward door. The corridor outside the ward door was quiet and empty. Not to mention those strange patients, not even a single night shift nurse could be seen. The ore lamps in the corridor were also extinguished, leaving only the crimson moonlight shining in from the windows facing outwards as support, allowing Klein to barely see the things outside. It's very quiet, the monsters are gone too. Klein quietly closed the ward door and took out a coin from his patient's pocket. Everything in the normal ward has also been projected into the dream. Klein walked back to his hospital bed, then suddenly squatted down and looked under his bed. There was nothing, and there was no monster that would make people's sanity drop wildly at a glance. Klein walked into the washroom again. It was empty and just as clean as before. It was as if this was truly just an ordinary, commonplace hospital room. As Klein pondered, he silently recited the divination statement, tossed a coin, and performed a simple divination. There is no danger. Klein didn't quite trust his divination result. After all, he had had this dream 3 times in a row, and each time the situation was different. The situations in the previous 2 dreams had given Klein rather unpleasant memories. But this time was very strange. Klein pondered the differences between this dream and the previous 2. In the previous 2 dreams, there were monsters. The fact that there weren't any this time could be reluctantly explained if the Secret Order's puppets in the real world had already been cleared away. After all, dreams are a symbol of some kind of subconscious. But if the previous 2 times were because of directly facing Raoul Bieber and suffering some kind of obscure contamination from the notes of that mad Secret Order member, then what about this time? After calming down, Klein didn't think that with Dunsmith, a Sequence 6 soul appraiser, and the assistance of an investigator from MI9 whose exact sequence was unknown but obviously no worse than Dunsmith, plus the purification ritual performed using Sunwell ore, there was anything on him that could make him fall into this bizarre dream again. And if it wasn't the doing of that as yet unseen demigod of Sequence 4 or even Sequence 3, then what could have allowed him to enter this strange dreamscape? No, there was something. Klein immediately realized something. The gray fog. That piece of gray fog. This was his greatest secret besides his transmigration, and also something whose mechanism he didn't quite understand so far. And the gray fog obviously had a very high level. Klein could even use it to pull Miss, Justice, and Mr. Hanged Man into the mysterious space above the gray fog. Is it the gray fog that's making me continue to have this dream? But why? So far, the gray fog had never shown any subjective initiative. Was it because something had stimulated it? Klein pondered for a moment, looked at the hospital room door, and hesitated whether to go out and see the condition of St. Peter's Hospital in this dream. But wasn't this a bit too coincidental? Speaking of which, Klein reviewed the process he had gone through after entering St. Peter's Hospital. This included Raoul Bieber's loss of control, the Secret Order's Arcanist's attack, Pettigrew's notes from the mad Secret Order member, plus the inspiration given by his own spiritual premonition in the dream. Although it seemed like it could all be linked together, and there was a progressive, unbroken, logically tight causal relationship, Klein, as an armchair expert, still smelled a hint of something different. No, never mind. Klein very simply lay down on the bed. Although that strange gray fog is like the golden finger I brought with me when I transmigrated, in this kind of environment, too much desire for exploration will only bring destruction. He directly gave up the idea of exploring this strange dream alone. After all, one must follow the will of one's heart. The hell with following the will of one's heart. In the mysterious space above the gray fog, Mr. Error, sitting at the head of the long bronze table, adjusted his black silk top hat and looked at Tang, who was at the bottom of the table and holding the Fool card, and asked with a smile. After all, it's following the will of one's heart, isn't it? This king of angels revealed a nostalgic smile. Thousands of years ago, weren't you very similar to Mr. Klein Moretti, our dear Mr. Eggers? Tang, I can hear it, you're mocking me. Even if I'm always called a turtle, I wasn't this much of a turtle when I was sequence 9. Tang screamed and crawled darkly while distorting. How am I supposed to digest the potion like this? Nicola, go parasitize him. He should go for it. Don't be a coward. Such a large instance, such a good opportunity, so many opportunities to explore the Saphira Castle and the secrets of Tingen. If he doesn't farm me, where will I get the merit? I mean, the potion digestion progress. Without potion digestion progress, he won't be able to leave sufficient imprints on the extraordinary characteristics. If he can't leave sufficient imprints, it will be very difficult for him later. Joe Mingrui, aren't you being a bit too much of a turtle? Mr. Error still maintained a good, presentable smile. It's okay, it's a small problem. Tang, who had directly coaxed himself, sat back in the high-backed chair, not being able to fully recognize the problem, only doing hypnosis in advance and using Azik's copper whistle to make arrangements, but being partially offset by the Saphira Castle's passivity and the Night Goddess's blessing. It's my fault. If it really doesn't work, then let a few people die first. The primordial witch, the hidden sage, let's first raise the hatred values of these two. Nicola, I remember you said before that a witch of what color from the witch sect is coming to Tingen? Yes, Mr. Error nodded. The witch sect has always wanted to exchange for the extraordinary characteristic of the conqueror from us, which was a spoil of war from the Backland War period. Their small actions are not few. Moreover, because those high-ranking witches of the witch pathway are good at resurrection and are strangely difficult to kill, it's difficult to directly use spirit threads to manipulate them into puppets with complete spirit bodies, spirituality, and extraordinary characteristics. Plus, the primordial witch is causing trouble, which is quite annoying. Tang waved his hand. Okay, let them in. Witches who bring disaster. Tang resumed his proper sitting posture, a rather hypocritical smile on his lips. After all, they are the children of God, members of the witch sect representing the feminine side of the original creator, and also high-ranking witches with color. He looked at Mr. Error, who was sitting at the head of the long bronze table. Mr. Error smiled, also revealing a meaningful smile. Let Brooks take over the witch sect on Backland's side and cooperate with George III, so he can't hold back here, can he? Mr. Error, pass the buck. Tang, the arrival of the witches has caused even more serious mutations in Tingen City, which will cause cracks in the ritual magic here. Therefore, the hidden sage invades, leading to a further outbreak of disaster. Mr. Error, the hidden sage. Tang smiled. Just find someone to act it out. The high-sequence extraordinary Klein won't be able to see anything. In short, let's first put a black pot on that dirty thing that has been hiding from them for so long. System, hey, maggots crawling. Chapter 274,273 The Taste of a Witch. When Klein woke up again, the world outside the window was already bright. Last night was a peaceful night. After confirming that the gray fog was safe, Klein had no intention of entering that dream again to explore. He directly endured a night above the gray fog and spent the night peacefully. After confirming that he had returned to the real world, Klein breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that it is possible to actively leave the dream, because the night itself has a strong association with the mysterious symbolism of dreams. Therefore, when the sun rises and the red moon falls, the dream will naturally be lifted. This is fortunate. If I encountered a nightmare caused by various reasons, well, no matter what, I am the king of yellow and black who controls good luck, right? It's unavoidable to have a little bit of good luck. After some self-consolation, Klein got out of bed, entered the bathroom, and after washing up, he put on his usual clothes, preparing to return to No. 32 Red Rose Street, the Blackthorn Security Company, today. No matter what caused me to dream of that dream again, I definitely don't dare to stay in St. Peter's Hospital anymore, Klein slandered in his heart. The 3 nights in this hospital had left Klein with indelible psychological shadows. He didn't dare to stay any longer, otherwise, he didn't know what strange things would appear in the next dream. I'll go directly back to the Blackthorn Security Company and have Captain Pettigrew and the others check it again. I don't know how long this residual influence will last. I can't just stay above the gray fog every night, can I? Thinking about it, it's not impossible. Klein was also afraid of hospitals because he had heard too many ghost stories. After packing his things, Klein informed the doctor at St. Peter's of his intention to be discharged. The doctor didn't try to force him to stay. He carefully examined Klein's physical and mental state again, confirming that although he was a little tired, there was no obvious physical or spiritual damage. The doctor quickly approved his discharge application. Carrying his suitcase filled with clothes, Klein quickly completed the discharge procedures. He picked up the not-so-heavy suitcase and strode out of St. Peter's Hospital. I'll go to the Blackthorn Security Company first. Well, I have to tell the captain about this. I don't know if I can go back to No. 47 Golden Rose Street at this stage. Of course, Klein rationally believed that not meeting his family was the best protection for them after confirming that there were other extraordinary people lurking in Tingen City. Walking out of the hospital gate, in the crowded lobby on the first floor of the hospital, Klein, carrying his suitcase, saw a black-haired, blue-eyed lady wearing a simple, holy white robe, who seemed to have an unexpected, breathtaking quality that made people unable to help but pay attention, walking in from outside the hall and passing in front of him. When this lady walked into the lobby of St. Peter's Hospital, her simple and pure temperament attracted the attention of everyone in the entire lobby. Klein was stunned, but quickly recovered from the strange feeling just now. This kind of abnormal charm reaction, an extraordinary person of the witch pathway. And a witch with a not low sequence. Klein looked at the high-ranking witch who had already disappeared from his sight, leaving only a pure white and holy impression in his mind. He touched the bridge of his nose, carrying his suitcase, preparing to find a carriage back to the Blackthorn Security Company. Klein knew that there were witches in Tingen City, but he didn't expect to see such a lady in public who made people involuntarily want to follow her. Lust is a knife over your head, Joe Mingrui. Klein silently recited, the witch convent turns people into women, the witch convent turns people into women, whether it's a woman or a man is still up for debate, man on man, things are not good, and then forcibly threw the inappropriate images that appeared in his mind after seeing that witch out of his head. The lady wearing a simple and holy white robe took the elevator and, under the various surprised, infatuated, and extremely familiar gazes of a group of people, arrived at the top floor of St. Peter's Hospital. From the top floor of St. Peter's Hospital, one could almost see the entire Tingen City. Standing here, one could see the scattered streets, buildings, and pedestrians arranged in a way that conformed to a certain pattern. Tingen City, the earthly kingdom belonging to the gods. The lady wearing a simple and holy white robe slightly curved the corners of her mouth, revealing a breathtaking smile that possessed both unparalleled holiness and seductive depravity, and gently knocked on the door of the director's office. The door opened in response to the witch's knock. The various furnishings in the director's office of St. Peter's Hospital were not like those in other duty offices in the hospital. It was decorated quite simply and seemed particularly primitive. Rather than saying that this was a place for office work, it was more like a huge greenhouse where some peculiar plants were cultivated. It was hard to imagine that the director's office, the most core area of St. Peter's Hospital, would look like this. Many flowers, plants, and trees of various colors and shapes were laid on the floor, walls, and ceiling of the director's office. They were all in full bloom, growing vigorously, trying to cover the entire room with their branches, leaves, and stems. Katrina Pell, the White Saint, stepped slowly into the director's office, carrying a calm, gentle power that seemed to charm even the plants. "Good morning, Your Excellency the Director." The director of St. Peter's Hospital, with a gentle face, brown hair draped to her waist, wearing a simple and neat flax-colored dress, and using brown bark as a belt, stood up from her office chair. She didn't seem surprised by the sudden appearance of the high-level member of the witch cult. She looked at the White Saint with light brown eyes and greeted her with a smile. The White Saint Katrina's gaze, after glancing over the director of St. Peter's Hospital, who was obviously an angel, she whispered. Mr. Flammel told me to come here to meet him. Has Mr. Flammel arrived? The director of St. Peter's Hospital nodded. The white St. Katrina seemed to foresee it, looking at a figure that suddenly appeared in front of the French window. She bowed slightly to the figure, performing an extremely standard, endearing, noble Rouen lady etiquette. Good morning, Mr. Flammel. Nicholas Flammel, wearing a black silk top hat and a matching swallow-tailed coat, looked at the witch and smiled, good morning. The white saint, Katerina, opened her mouth, about to say something, but Nikolai casually glanced at the ageless witch. You look like you're sick. Sick. The white saint, Katerina, was about to shake her head and deny it with a smile, but the ageless witch's body shattered into countless shards of mirror the moment she made contact with Nikolai's gaze. The witch, skilled in divination, seemed to realize something and proactively used a mirror substitute to avoid the impending fatal blow. One after another, transparent worms with 12 segments flew out from the shattered mirror shards of the white saint, flying towards Nikolai Flammel, who stood before the French window, still appearing calm and composed, and merged into his body. In their first encounter, the white saint was almost parasitized by the worm of time. Facing a child of the primordial one who comes with sincerity, directly parasitizing without greeting, I don't think this is a particularly attention-grabbing, novel way of greeting, wouldn't you agree, Mr. Flammel? The figure of the white saint, Katerina Pell, reappeared where the mirror had shattered. Her gaze was still gentle, filled with a youthful, radiant feeling like that of a young girl. Even though she was an ancient being from the end of the Fourth Epoch, an ageless witch, whose age would put her in the same generation as Azik Eggers. Ageless witch, eternally youthful. This is just to test whether the high-level members of the witch sect who come have the ability to negotiate terms with me. Nikolai adjusted his black silk top hat, as if it wasn't him, an angel king, who had just attacked this sequence 3 witch. Then, have I passed the test? The white saint, Katerina Pell, wasn't angry, she asked with a smile. No, not at all. Nikolai revealed a somewhat strange smile on his face. After all, isn't it the primordial one who should be negotiating terms with me? The white saint, Katerina, didn't have time to react, her thoughts instantly fell into a rigid, sluggish state, like rusty gears. Marionette, master. In the next moment, the witch's body shattered into countless shards of mirror once again. She proactively activated her mirror substitute again, attempting to escape the Angel King's test once more. But in the French window of the dean's office, the person in the mirror, the male image of the white Saint Katerina that had just been reflected, had already been hung up by black, illusory threads, his body swaying, revealing expressions of resentment, pain, stiffness, satisfaction, and joy. The person in the mirror, the white saint's mirror image, had already been marionetted by a high-sequence meander of the seer pathway hidden in the shadows. And under the authority of error, the marionetting of the person in the mirror could, to some extent, be equated to the marionetting of the main body. The figure of the white saint, Katerina, reappeared in the dean's office, but this time, her expression instantly became numb, dull, painful, and struggling. The various black magic, black flames, frost, curses, and pathogens belonging to the ageless witch, the witch of despair, the witch, she didn't use any of them, she was easily defeated in just 2 encounters. The dean of St. Peter's Hospital, this lady who was also an angel, maintained a gentle expression from beginning to end, without saying a word or providing any assistance to Mr. Nikolai Flammel. This was the Angel King. Even if the other party was just an avatar, it was enough to kill her, a sequence 3 saint, 1,000 times over. This is despair. The white saint, after a long time, recalled everything she had experienced during her time as the Witch of Despair, the things that had driven her to despair. This high-level member of the witch sect seemed to have completed the marionetting process and become one of the many marionettes in Tingen City. Nikolai looked at the white saint, Katerina, who was about to be completely marionetted by Tang, and sighed silently, the primordial one. The hair of the white saint, Katerina, who was about to become a marionette, suddenly floated up. Having almost completed the marionetting process, with only the final step remaining, she shouldn't have been able to resist the marionette master's orders, she shouldn't have had the power to resist, but the abnormally floating hair seemed to be beyond the white Saint Katerina's control. All the hair turned into thick, black snakes, each strand ending in a petrified, half-open, half-closed eye. Ah, it seems I was mistaken. Nikolai removed his hat and gave a bow to the witch, who was clearly favored by the primordial one, You are qualified to discuss terms with me. The marionette master, who was controlling the marionettes, also opportunely released the marionetting process at the last moment, allowing Katerina a chance to breathe and restoring her body's ability to move. Nikolai looked at the ageless witch who had collapsed on the ground, still maintaining the smile that seemed to be carved into his bones from the very beginning. He nodded slightly, seemingly quite satisfied with the White Saint's condition. But the White Saint, Katerina, no longer had the somewhat casual attitude she had when she first stepped into this city. Even with the Primordial One's blessing, even with the Primordial One's gaze, in that state just now, even the person in the mirror, stored in a very secret place and having almost no connection to herself, used for resurrection, was almost marionetted. This was the Sequence 1 Angel King, this was the Angel King who had killed Amon, replaced him, and become the avatar of error. The controller of Tingan City, the highest-ranking being of the Thief Pathway. This was the power of the Angel King. The White Saint Katerina's expression gradually changed from the initial shock, panic, and fear to become somewhat dazed and reverent, but Nikolai didn't care about the lady's thoughts at all. He spoke with a smile, opening his mouth gently. You have the Primordial One's blessing. I believe the Primordial One has already given you an oracle. Yes. The White Saint Katerina's voice sounded somewhat hoarse after what had just happened. Her tone lowered, and her voice was faint, as if revealing a weak, pitiful, boneless voice that could make any man feel pity. The Primordial One has given me a task. He hopes that I can help you, Mr. Flammel. Anything you want to do, I can do for you, even if. She looked at Nikolai. Nikolai blinked. Tang, looking over here through the marionette's perspective. The two Angel Kings, for some reason, remembered a saying once said by Emperor Rosal. The taste of a witch is really good. The witch sect's movements haven't been small recently, whether in Backland, Trier, at sea, or elsewhere. After seeing off Saint of White, Katerina, Nicholas looked at the mirror person of Saint of White, Katerina, hanging in the mirror as a marionette. This male mirror person of Katerina was not released from the state of being a marionette, and the partial power of the descent of the primordial witch did not grant this mirror person the ability to break free from its restraints. He was still a marionette controlled by someone after experiencing rapid marionettization. Inside the floor-to-ceiling windows of the dean's office, the body of Katerina's male mirror person gradually stopped swaying. The illusory black threads that pulled at his neck and lifted him up had silently released, allowing the mirror person to land steadily, his expression gradually changing from the previous struggle, pain, joy, and happiness to a calm smile. His somewhat bloodshot eyes, as he landed, turned into a deep, bottomless ocean of darkness. This mirror person approached the mirror of the floor-to-ceiling window and slowly walked out from it. The mirror person became an outsider. Yes, of course, the witch sect's restlessness is probably related to the approaching apocalypse. The day of the prophesied year 1368, the arrival of this apocalypse, is getting closer and closer. Before the apocalypse arrives, everyone will inevitably advance crazily. Kings of angels will try to become true gods, and true gods will try to occupy adjacent pathways. It's a very normal self-preservation mindset. The mirror person seemed to be still adapting to his body, and I have to say, the mirror person of the immortality witch is also an interesting thing. This Saint of White's choice to become the immortality witch's ritual should be to enslave or bewitch herself in the mirror, which also led to her mirror person's image still being that of her male period. Of course, whether it's reconciliation, enslavement, or bewitchment, for Tang and Nicholas, they only need to control and parasitize this mirror person marionette to synchronously control and parasitize Saint of White, Katerina, who will synchronously turn into a marionette once she loses the protection of the primordial one. This is the embodiment of the authority of deception and error. Without the true God's constant protection, the time worm and rapid marionettization, along with the authority of deception, are enough to take care of this Sequence 3 immortality witch. Nicholas looked at the mirror person walking out of the mirror and raised his eyebrows slightly. The witch sect is now in place. Triss has also entered Tingen ahead of schedule under arrangement. Is the true creator's side still following the original plan? Of course. After all, Adam has already paid the corresponding reward. I am not a person who goes back on his word, and I am also looking forward to what the true creator, who retains his humanity and is out of control, will do. The mirror person smiled. He jokingly said, in general, Adam, who retains the divinity of the ancient sun god, is much easier to communicate with than the true creator, who has gone mad because of his humanity. After all, this angel of imagination is not an angel king who doesn't listen to advice. Having a better plan, one that doesn't require too much sacrifice and ensures that it's to welcome the apocalypse and resist the arrival of the outer gods, the angel of imagination, Adam, is more trustworthy than the Lord of Storms and the others in certain matters. Tang can accept cooperation with limitations. After all, the seer pathway and the spectator pathway are not on sequences that can be mutually crossed and exchanged. Without fundamental conflicts in pathways and the path to godhood, Tang doesn't need to prepare to slap Amon twice upon meeting him. Of course, there is some overlap between the destiny of the supreme pathway and the future that will inevitably unfold into reality, declared by the visionary, but it's not significant. There's no need to make up for the authority by eating the visionary. If it's cooperation with the witch sect, what they most likely want are our 2 copies of the Conqueror's uniqueness. Nicholas stated plainly. His gaze fell on a lady wearing a white, sacred robe at the entrance of St. Peter's Hospital outside the floor-to-ceiling window. Although they haven't made their request, Nicholas doesn't think that an ancient and secretive organization that has developed from the Fourth Epoch to the present, from the witch family to the witch sect, would let go of these 2 copies of the Conqueror's uniqueness. Of course, this is under the condition that these 2 copies of the uniqueness exist in the form of sealed artifacts, rather than being used as advancement materials. Accurately speaking, there is only one on the surface. Moreover, if she can snatch it, I'm sure she wouldn't mind a few high-ranking witches dying, or even her own children dying along with them. Tang sincerely feels that the primordial one, who mixed with the Blood Emperor to have children in the Fourth Epoch, and then dragged the entire witch family and his grandfather, who had died thousands of years ago, to challenge the 7 gods, and was finally beaten half to death, is quite insane. The mirror person rested his cheek on his hand, also looking at the Saint of White outside. Their purpose is already very obvious: to recover the Conqueror's uniqueness, forcefully break into the city where 001 is located, retrieve the uniqueness of the Red Priest pathway, and help the Primordial One achieve destruction, calamity, source of calamity, and so on. Currently, the 3 copies of the Conqueror's uniqueness, with 2 copies having clear and specific locations, and 1 copy being in that underground trier of the Fourth Epoch, are not easy to obtain. During the development of thousands of years, the uniqueness of the Red Priest pathway, Sequence 1 Conqueror, belonging to the Falsac Empire's royal family, the Einhorn family, had long ago fallen into Tang's hands because of the Oathbreaking War. This uniqueness with a clear and specific attribution, falling into the hands of Miskatonic University, is equivalent to Nicholas Flamel, the existence who killed Amon and advanced to the Angel King of the Thief pathway, obtaining the uniqueness. The second copy belongs to the Augustus family of the Loen kingdom, and the Augustus family also has a Sequence 1 Extraordinary, the founding Emperor Augustus I, who would never easily give it away. As for the remaining uniqueness left in Trier, 200 years ago, Foreman Champagne Soren, who was then from the Soren family of the Intis Republic, became a conqueror, entered that underground Fourth Epoch Trier due to losing control and going crazy, and fell there. Of course, Nicholas Flamel, Tang, Cheritu, and Rosal Gustav all had a hand in this. And now, this uniqueness of the Conqueror that originally belonged to Foreman Champagne Soren is also in Tang's hands. Adding the long-term strategic cooperation with the God of Knowledge and Wisdom, and through George III, that overly radical guy in Loen who doesn't value human life at all, the third Conqueror uniqueness is also pretty much locked in our hands. The previous 2 extraordinary characteristics of the Conqueror pathway, the witch cult, knew their whereabouts clearly. However, the extraordinary characteristic belonging to Vermonda Champagne Soren involved the special Fourth Epoch ancient building under Trier, the capital of the Intis Republic. Coupled with Tang's deliberate misleading and blockade, the information they could obtain was actually very limited. Therefore, it was difficult for the witches to realize that the giant wandering in underground Trier was actually just a false conqueror with the power of the observer blessing. Well, its essence was still that of a marionette. Moreover, whether it's the extraordinary characteristics they know about or the ones they don't, they've already been used up. Brooks went to outer space, and with a barrier and distance limiting her, the primordial witch found it difficult to determine whether the conqueror had been born. As for that extraordinary characteristic in Backland, wasn't that being prepared to snatch, no, to discuss conditions with the Augustus family? The person in the mirror sighed. If the witch sect knew that they were drawing water with a bamboo basket, what would they do? Perhaps they would become angry out of humiliation. Nicola placed his hands behind his back, enjoying the morning scenery with the person in the mirror. Then let them sulk. After all, there was a 90% probability that the witch sect wouldn't be able to obtain a single extraordinary characteristic of the Conqueror pathway before the end of the world. By then, even if the primordial witch knew, so what? How would she snatch it? Even now, if they wanted to snatch the extraordinary characteristic of the Conqueror pathway from the Einhorn royal family of the Fursak Empire, apart from trading, did she think she could fight with two kings of angels, the primordial one, the night goddess who had a clear stance, and several angels? Wouldn't she be made into a marionette on the spot and hung up to process the extraordinary characteristic? In that case, I'm a little curious. What does it feel like to control a marionette at the true god level? Is the difficulty of operation increased? The person in the mirror of White Saint Katarina seemed to have thought of something, and a sweet smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, which seemed a little discordant because of his masculinity, but resembled the smile of White Saint Katarina. There was a kind of distorted, pieced-together sense of madness. These people in the mirror, born because of the pathway, had a strong desire to replace themselves outside the mirror, and each time, the witch's mirror substitute would kill these people in the mirror once, which also led to these witches' people in the mirror, whether ordinary or special, being crazy beasts. The person in the mirror thought of these mystical knowledge belonging to the witch pathway with boredom. Oh, right, speaking of the primordial witch, I'm more curious now about how she manages to freestyle diving in the Chaos Sea. Tang knew the Sequence Zero's godhood ceremony of the witch pathway. Compared to manipulating the true god marionette of Sequence Zero, he was more curious about this. This kind of ritual requirement, the witch who controls the chaos, this chaos refers to the Chaos Sea. It's really strange, did God still include private goods in the catastrophe and seer pathways? Ah, this is really a world with both crazy and chaotic underlying rules. Perhaps you can ask after turning her into your marionette. Nicholas straightened his black silk top hat, and his figure gradually turned into countless transparent, 12-segmented worms, about to dissipate. That's right, although after such a comparison, it seems that Zun Zunbao is really useless. Belonging to the male mirror image of the White Saint Katarina, the expression on his face gradually became calm, and the brilliance of humanity was refilled. He was equipped with the bionic marionette module and integrated into the happy family of Tingen City. The director of St. Peter's Hospital, who had not spoken from beginning to end, got up and smiled slightly at the person in the mirror who had begun to bow to her. Come with me. After all, in Tingen, there are quite a few people like you. Klein returned to No. 32 Red Rose Street, the Tingen City headquarters of the Nighthawks, the Blackthorn Security Company, and happened to meet Roseanne, who was coming to work at this time. Roseanne was a local of Tingen City. Her father went to the night church in Backland 5 years ago. Based on the basic protection principles for the families of Nighthawks, Roseanne quickly became a clerical staff member in the Tingen City Nighthawks team after coming into contact with the mystical circle. Klein heard that she could have gone to Backland with her father to take up a post, but the work benefits of the Nighthawks in Tingen City were really too good. In addition, this was a city protected by the gods. Roseanne and Roseanne's mother stayed to work and live in Tingen City. This made her poor old father seem a little silly. Good morning, Klein. Why are you back today? Is there something important you need to find Captain for? Roseanne obviously knew that Dunn had approved Klein's 5-day paid sick leave, but Klein really didn't have the mind to continue staying in St. Peter's Hospital. After telling Roseanne that he couldn't sleep well in the hospital, he saw Roseanne's surprised gaze. But that's paid vacation. You don't know, I wish I could lie in the hospital all day. Well, but if you just walk away like this, for the next 2 days, are you planning to stay here to rest? Roseanne quickly found a reason for Klein to slack off on the spot. Uncle Collier's craftsmanship has always been good. There will be braised beef in the employee cafeteria at noon today. Miss Roseanne, why are you so familiar with the sick leave process, and why can you always bring it up in relation to food? Klein thought with some helplessness. After saying goodbye to Roseanne, Klein came to Captain Dunn's office. He knocked on the door. After hearing a "come in" from inside, Klein pushed the door open and saw Captain Dunn Smith and Leonard Mitchell wearing a monocle, looking at him. Yo, what has happened to our busy man again? Leonard habitually pinched his monocle, saying with a bit of teasing. I couldn't sleep well at St. Peter's. I also saw a doctor, and the doctor said I was fine, so I decided to leave the hospital. Klein smiled a little shyly. Then, as if thinking of something, he asked, Captain, are the next 2 days still paid sick leave? Leonard chuckled, and Dunn also rubbed his temples helplessly, but still nodded. Roseanne told you, right? Klein smiled. Ah, as long as I don't dream tonight, then everyone is still good friends. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. At noon, after Pettigrew returned from fieldwork, he brought Klein good news. Of course, he didn't seem surprised by Klein's decision to discharge himself from the hospital. If you feel well enough, then it's a good thing not to be at St. Peter's. It is a hospital after all. Pettigrew shrugged. As for sorcerers, they naturally disliked places that emphasized science. Also, the professional ritual magic level test, hosted by Miskatonic, is about to begin. I've already gotten you the registration form. I think you must be planning to register. Klein took the few ancient pieces of parchment that Pettigrew handed him. They had unique emblems, patterns, and characteristics printed at the top. He saw a large sentence written on them in dozens of languages, including Ancient Hermes, Giant, Dragon, and Elvish. Professional Ritual Magic Level Test, Northern Continent Region, Examination Notice. Organizer, Miskatonic University. The 1102nd Professional Ritual Magic Level Test, Northern Continent Region, Examination, fully handled by Miskatonic, will be held on August 4th of this year at Miskatonic University. Please note, all candidates, the registration deadline for this exam is 2400 on July 31st. You can inform the university of your intention to apply through rituals, letters, or other means. The standard procedure for ritual magic is as follows. Please note, candidates, the Professional Ritual Magic Level Test, Northern Continent Region, examination categories are classified as Grade 1, Ritual Master, Recommended Candidate Sequences, Sequence 1, Sequence 3. Grade 2, Ritual Master, Sequence 3, Sequence 7. Grade 3, Ritual Master, Sequence 7, Sequence 9. All candidates are advised to rationally choose the level of Ritual Master they apply for to avoid irreversible personal injury. For the above situations, the university reserves all rights of management, traceability, and disposal. In addition, for cheating candidates, the university adheres to the concept of honest examination, eliminate cheating, and you will be permanently blacklisted by the university. Note: candidates who are skilled in ritual magic and favored by evil gods should note that after entering Miskatonic University, the protection of evil gods will be ineffective. The rituals you chant to request power from evil gods will also be considered cheating. All candidates are advised to register with caution. Klein scanned the parchment from beginning to end and then saw the name signed at the end of the parchment. Miskatonic University President, Nicholas Flamel. That line of neat words seemed to transform into an unspeakable vortex in Klein's eyes, as if it was going to swallow him whole. Phew. Klein took a deep breath and asked with feigned curiosity, this, well, Nicholas Flamel, is the you were talking about? Klein didn't know who Nicholas Flamel was in the real world. He had seen the name in Emperor Rassel's diary. So, Klein acted as if he was seeing the name for the first time, a little curious, and couldn't help but guess. After all, Miskatonic University's close ties with Tingen City were enough to indicate that the university had a very deep connection with the protector of Tingen City, that existence. Yes, Pettigrew did not deny it, so Klein, within Tingen City, even outside of Tingen City, it is enough for us to chant his honorific name, because this involves the name that symbolizes that existence's essence. Chanting such a thing will lead to something even more terrifying than chanting an honorific name. Of course, Klein was no longer a novice who had just entered the world of Beyonders. He was quite clear about the meaning of a true name of a deity. However, but that existence directly signed his name on the notice. The true name that could not be chanted was written so brazenly on the examination notice. Wasn't he afraid that someone would actually try to chant it using language with supernatural power? Pettigrew, try chanting it in Lonus. Klein did as he was told. He was able to chant it. Now try it in Ancient Hermes. Klein obediently opened his mouth, but this time, his vocal cords vibrated, and what came out was meaningless noise. This is also a form of authority and symbolism, Pettigrew said. That existence is the embodiment of error. Here in the Northern Continent, there are quite a few Beyonders who obediently participate in the level test according to the procedures. Under the circumstances of learning that existence's true name through the signature on the examination notice, it is impossible to chant it using language with supernatural power. This was both protection and deterrence. Pettigrew obviously understood more about this, and after obtaining the qualification certificate, some ritual magic involving hidden existences will be open to these beyonders. Those secret organizations and wild beyonders generally find it difficult to get a benevolent response from the orthodox gods. This is indeed a way for them to improve their strength relatively quickly. Of course, there are also quite a few who have malicious intentions. Klein quickly understood what Pettigrew was saying. He pondered, so, that existence's name appears from the standpoint of a supervisor, a guardian. Similar to a witness of a contract and a master of shackles. After all, whether it's secret organizations, wild beyonders, or orthodox churches, someone should be participating in this exam, right? If they really started fighting in the examination hall, it would be a real free-for-all. Yes, Pettigrew nodded. He smiled slightly, and this thing itself is equivalent to a fixed weekly subsidy, isn't it, Klein? Klein was startled, then he also smiled. Yes, you are right. After finishing this topic, Klein shifted from the issue of Miskatonic University to his mother. He had already prepared a draft in his mind and said, I would like to ask other doctors at St. Peter's Hospital, well, those with extraordinary power, real doctors in the occult sense, to treat my mother. This should be very expensive, but the treatment costs can be deducted in installments from my weekly salary. I just don't know if there will be interest. If the interest is acceptable and the doctors at St. Peter's can agree, I hope to treat my mother's injuries and illnesses as soon as possible, Pettigrew. Klein's attitude was sincere. Pettigrew thought for a moment, seemingly considering the compliance of this matter. Then, as if he suddenly remembered something, he said, well, about this, you can ask the captain later. I remember that the confidentiality agreement signed by the Nighthawks includes some rules regarding the Nighthawks' relatives. If the captain agrees, remember to write an application form for me. I will try to contact St. Peter's at that time. The Nighthawks and St. Peter's already have a certain cooperative employment relationship. Regarding the medical expenses for this part of the treatment, some will be covered by the Church of the Evernights Medical Insurance Fund, and some by the Tingen City government. The rest, with your weekly salary, should be paid off quickly. As for the interest, it shouldn't be high. I need to find the documents. Klein didn't expect things to go so smoothly. He nodded with pleasure. Pettigrew waved his hand without much concern and walked out of the office prepared for Klein. As expected, there are still more good people in this world. The knot in Klein's heart, or to be precise, the knot in the original body's heart, was finally lessened by one. This made Klein's mood, which had been unpleasant since last night's nightmare, much better. Taking advantage of the daytime, Klein planned to go back to 47 Crimson Rose Street to get a few more sets of his clothes and also to see Benson and Melissa, to see if they were worried while he was away, and to leave them a note to let them know he was safe. After all, it's been many days since I've been home. It's normal for Benson and Melissa to be worried. Well, there won't be much of a problem during the day, but the captain still hasn't let me leave here directly. I should still tell the captain about this first. Klein walked out of the office, just about to find Dunn to ask if he could go home for a while. Pettigrew had gone out again for something. Klein himself was only an auxiliary member of Sequence 9, so it was very important to seek the captain's opinion. As soon as Klein walked out of his office, he hadn't taken many steps when he saw Leonard, wearing a monocle, walking towards him at the end of the corridor. Are you planning to go out? Leonard walked closer and asked with a teasing tone. Klein wasn't very fond of this mysterious and rather strange fellow, but everyone was a Nighthawk, so Klein wouldn't offend Leonard. Of course, he believed he could try to stay away from him as much as possible. Oh, the captain forgot to tell you, you can go out, accompanied by any other Nighthawk. After all, Tingen City isn't as safe as it used to be now. Even as an official Beyonder organization, we must ensure our own safety, right, Mr. Moretti? You want to go out, right? Why don't we go together? It just so happens that I also want to go out for a walk, and you can also take this opportunity to go to the Divination Club and try to seriously act as a, well, diviner. Klein instantly understood what the Leonard Mitchell in front of him was trying to express. He has something he wants to tell me. After experiencing this crazy talker's words once, Klein actually didn't trust this strange poet who seemed nonchalant. His spiritual intuition told him that this poet in front of him should be hiding a considerable secret, hiding a very big problem. Just that ordinary-looking monocle, at certain times, gave Klein a chilling feeling in his heart. But this also made Klein genuinely curious, though it was far from the level where he would be alone with this poet when he was by himself. Mysterious and weird guys are usually a little crazy. As if sensing Klein's hesitation, Leonard habitually pinched the monocle in his left eye socket again. He said with a smile in his voice, "Of course, if you don't want to, we can just simply talk about strange dreams, and topics of that kind. After all, as a nightmare, I think I still have a certain right to speak." Klein, he felt like this was hinting at him. This guy, does he know that I've had that dream for the third time? Klein was surprised internally, but his expression remained unchanged. He silently got into the same carriage with Leonard. The carriage slowly drove towards 47 Crimson Rose Street, but there was silence inside the carriage. Ever since he got into the carriage, Leonard had been holding some paper he had gotten from somewhere and writing and drawing with a fountain pen, but he didn't say any nonsensical things immediately as Klein had expected. Instead, he seemed to ignore Klein and immerse himself in his own world. Klein was even more confused about what this guy meant now. He didn't speak first, and neither did Leonard. When the carriage was about to turn from White Azalea Street into Golden Rose Street, Leonard handed what he had written to Klein. "As you can see, I am a poet." Leonard smiled and pushed his monocle. "I only have one purpose in coming out with you. Please evaluate the poem I have created." Klein was startled by the words. He subconsciously took the paper from Leonard's hand and saw these words written on it. "Crimson roses begin to wither from July. The spider weaving nightmares spreads its 8 ankles entwined with silk. The weeping traveler dripping blood tears looks down on the earth with pity. Blood and red are the main theme of this world. Stars twinkle in the night. The sun is held high above the sky. The earth trembles, thunder rumbles. When the heavy rain comes, the weaving spider catches its second prey. Spider silk wraps around the prey trapped in a nightmare struggles powerlessly in the pouring rain of the night, and the rain from the coming storm remains among the 1,000 spiderwebs. Knowledge is the only way to save this trapped butterfly. Beside the weaving spider is another white cocoon already fast asleep. Birth and destruction have always been a strange pair of twins. The place closest to the starry sky is the end of everything. Your hope is not here, the spider's silk has already bound you. From prey to hunter, it is itself a process of breaking the cocoon and becoming a butterfly. When your voice falls into the ears of the stars, fate will guide you to the inevitable end. Awakening in falsehood, sleeping soundly in reality, the weaving spider lovingly strokes the body of its prey, injecting a poison without an antidote. Crimson roses bloom freely, the glass containing the roses is about to shatter. In that distant rose field, however, 2 more roses are competing to bloom. One symbolizes stagnation, the other symbolizes new life. But the only opportunity for the withered rose, picked by the spider, to bloom, is the rain left on the spider's web. Klein finished reading the contents of the paper Leonard gave him and felt a bit lost. "This is just something I wrote on a whim, what do you think?" Leonard smiled indifferently. After all, sitting in a carriage without any entertainment can be quite boring, can't it? "I was once a midnight poet, and I have a very thorough understanding of poetry." "Are you sure? This book is first published on the whole network. Are you really sure you have a thorough understanding of poetry?" Klein considered it for a moment and said, objectively and pointedly, "The inspiration is good, but the content needs improvement." Things like spiders, roses, and poison were all over the place, making the whole poem seem muddled and inexplicably giving people goosebumps. Klein returned the paper in his hand to Leonard, but Leonard refused, seemingly having no intention of taking it back. Leonard shrugged, not trying to hide anything. "You keep it." He pinched the monocle on his left eye socket and smiled at Klein with an unclear meaning, which made Klein inexplicably feel like this person was watching a good show, a creepy feeling. "What am I going to do with this?" Klein was about to blurt out that sentence, but in the end, he opened his mouth but didn't say what was on his mind. Instead, he folded the paper with the strange poem on it and put it in his pocket, keeping it safe. Leonard didn't mind Klein's actions. When the carriage came to a steady stop in front of the gate of Golden Rose Street number 47, he nodded and said to Klein, "Go up and get your things, I'll wait for you here. If you don't come down in 15 minutes, I'll go up and find you. There's a large ritual magic monitoring system set up by the Tingen city government nearby. Generally speaking, there won't be any problems. No problem, Mr. Diviner. Okay. Klein was a bit surprised that the Tingen city government had a monitoring ritual magic system nearby, but he didn't have much emotion about Leonard's arrangement. He wasn't a giant baby who needed to be looked after all the time. Watching Klein walk into the gate of Golden Rose Street No. 47, Leonard leaned back leisurely, resting one leg on the knee of the other. He habitually adjusted the monocle that was slightly askew from his movement, then casually reached out. A piece of paper, like magic, appeared in Leonard's hand again. Looking at the lines of poetry on it, which were clearly not his own work but merely a simple repetition of a certain malicious fellow's prophecy, Leonard's lips slowly curved into a brilliant smile that reached his ears. The Fool's Prophecy poem, no wonder my paranoid brother is cooperating with you instead. The domain of destiny, within disorder and chaos, emphasizes the inevitable outcome, the fixed number. It's really interesting. The paper floated without wind. Leonard casually crumpled it, and the paper turned into a blooming red rose that looked clean and neat under the sunlight. Although there is more than one rose blooming in the flower bed, it is almost impossible to get two identical roses. Leonard paused for a moment, glanced at the observation window of the public carriage, and saw himself wearing a monocle on the translucent glass of the observation window. As one of the top decryption experts in this world, with a considerable amount of valid information, Leonard could actually easily guess what the symbols in the prophecy poem represented. He lowered his voice slightly, appearing somewhat pensive, so this is why the concept of a mirror is needed. Promoting the godhood of the Red Priest, and the reason why Alistair Tudor and Salinger, these two former Red Priests, completely fell, is also here. Of course, this was clearly not part of Leonard's paranoid brother's plan. In fact, in his paranoid brother's plan, the Red Priest, one of the two paths of disaster, should have achieved godhood much later. Is it because both sides took a step back after discussion? After all, the apocalypse is approaching, and many things cannot be perfectly resolved without paying a price. Making necessary sacrifices is a very reasonable thing. Cataclysm of destruction, source of disaster. Leonard's fingers casually fiddled with the thorny rose stem in his hand, a faint smile always lingering on his lips. Tingen City, it's truly fascinating. This also doesn't waste the effort of this clone of mine, coming here through so many hardships. Seeing Klein come out of Golden Rose Street No. 47, Leonard crushed the rose in his hand, letting it turn into paper scraps that fell to the ground and disappeared. He subconsciously pinched his monocle, and then a very pleasant smile appeared on his face again. And, after the carriage left Golden Rose Street, Klein and Leonard went to the Diviner Club at Blue Moon Street No. 17. Do you need me to accompany you, Mr. Diviner? Leonard asked with a hint of teasing. No, no need, Klein said very rationally. There are mid-sequence beyonders of the Diviner pathway in the Diviner Club, so I think it should be very safe. At least, it's much safer than staying with you. Klein muttered to himself. Klein was completely unable to understand Leonard's logic of action now. Since leaving Blackthorn's security company today until now, Leonard hadn't done anything strange except giving him a self-created poem that he couldn't make sense of. He was acting like a good teammate, so normal that Klein felt he was abnormal instead. Leonard didn't seem surprised by Klein's refusal. He shrugged and prepared to have the carriage driver take him back to Blackthorn's security company without saying anything. All right, since you're so insistent, I'll come find you in 4 hours, or when Palace comes back, I'll have him find you. As for lunch, our Mr. Diviner can just make do here. Seeing that Leonard actually just waved and left like that, Klein stood at the entrance of Blue Moon Street No. 17, deep in thought. Could it be that he really just wanted me to appreciate his poetry? However, Klein immediately realized that he felt the probability of this happening was about the same as him being hit by a truck and transmigrating back to his original world right now. The words of this mysterious guy were always like squeezing toothpaste, and what he said seemed crazy and very strange. Before further understanding, or rather, knowing more, and before Leonard revealed his true purpose, Klein really didn't know how to communicate with him, normally. Forget it, I'll take it one step at a time. Klein lifted his foot and walked into the Diviner Club. The receptionist at the Diviner Club had changed. This should also be a marionette, indicating that the person on duty at the Diviner Club today was not the marionette master who generously gave him the potion formula before. Klein politely registered his name in the registry under the receptionist's smiling guidance. He planned to borrow a room on the 3rd floor for his upcoming divination, to continue adding to the diviner potion he had already digested a lot of. That's right, Mr. Moretti, as an organized, legitimate diviner club recognized by the Church and Miskatonic University, our venue, drinks, meals, annual fees, and general infrastructure costs are all paid for by the Tingen city government. And you, as a professional diviner, we will determine the minimum and maximum fees for a single divination based on your potion sequence, your specialties in divination, and other factors. You can set your required remuneration within a reasonable range. This was to protect the rationality of the diviners' fees, and Klein expressed his understanding. Of course, based on the Diviner Club being a legitimate mystical organization in Tingen City, those who come here for divination are not only ordinary people with certain special channels, but also beyonders from other organizations and pathways. We also need to sign a document with restrictive effect, prohibiting unauthorized divination of others' privacy within the Diviner Club, etc. Klein listened to the receptionist explain the specific rules of the Diviner Club. After learning about the existence of the acting method, Klein also quickly thought about a part of the document the Diviner Club provided for diviners, which should also be the rules that the diviner acting method needs to follow. This is helping the diviners in the club quickly summarize the relevant rules. Klein understood this point, and then signed his name, Klein Moretti, on the Diviner Club statement document that the receptionist brought. The receptionist smiled as usual and led Klein to a room on the third floor with a relatively conservative decoration style, but with all the necessary items for divination. Based on your sequence and potion name, we recommend a fee of 4 to 8 soli per divination. Of course, if your divination results are quite accurate, or your diviner potion has been significantly digested, and the number of divinations and effects have improved, we will also increase the price of your divination within a reasonable range. Although the Diviner Club would take 10% of the divination fee, this was still quite generous. Klein pondered his divination fee and cautiously chose a middle price, then 6 soli it is. Ah, is this how Beyonders earn extra money? Klein muttered to himself. The receptionist smiled and nodded. After recording the price he wanted, she left the room. Klein exhaled, then casually took out the paper with the strange content that Leonard had given him from his pocket. He always felt that Leonard followed him this time just to give him this paper with the strange poem on it. Klein now deeply suspected that this mysterious guy, Leonard, had hidden some information in this poem. Interpreting symbols is actually a very common mystical method in the field of divination. Divination itself is about obtaining various abstract information from the spirit world, and the interpreter's ability sometimes represents the level of content they can obtain from this abstract information. And everything that appeared in this poem written by Leonard had certain symbolic meaning from the perspective of a diviner. Ah, of course, if it was just a baseless complaint, that would be another matter. Klein pondered the 2 sentences that contained the word, you, and felt a little strange. Your hope is not here, the spider's silk has already bound you, from prey to hunter, it is a process of breaking free from the cocoon and becoming a butterfly. When your voice falls into the ears of the stars, destiny will lead you to the inevitable end. Awakening in falsehood, sleeping soundly in reality, the weaving spider lovingly strokes the body of its prey, injecting a poison without an antidote. The spider's silk binds you, from prey to hunter, the voice falls into the ears of the stars, awakening in falsehood, sleeping soundly in reality. Klein pondered these sentences, his brows slowly furrowing. Is this implying that my destiny itself is problematic? Whose prey am I? What is false? Is it related to the gray fog to some extent? No, not necessarily. Maybe Leonard is just being crazy and really just complaining without reason. And this strange way of speaking really makes people want to give him a beating. Klein muttered in his heart. At this moment, the door to the room was suddenly knocked. Klein looked over and thought, someone's here. So fast, he quickly said loudly, please come in. The door opened in response. The first person Klein saw was the receptionist who had brought him up just now. Then, Klein saw a young lady behind the receptionist who looked a bit worried. This is Miss Anna. Due to some special reasons, we would like to ask you to perform a divination for her. Klein immediately caught this word. This wasn't Miss Anna finding the Diviner Club herself, but the Diviner Club sending her to Klein. Yes, the receptionist said politely, her husband disappeared after going out to sea a while ago. Now, that ship has returned to Tingen City, carrying countless corpses. Tingen City, docks. The merchant ship was docked at the pier. The smell of blood drifted from the ship, making the stomachs of the ordinary police officers on duty here churn with acid, almost sickeningly wanting to vomit. It has been confirmed. There are no survivors on the entire merchant ship, and 7 people are missing. Pallas stepped on the already putrid deck, covered in black dried blood, and stared at the piles of corpses that had exposed many bones and were rotting due to the erosion of the sea breeze and waves and the pecking of seabirds. This merchant ship was wiped out. It doesn't look like the pirates' style. Pallas said. Yes. The police officer next to him suppressed his nausea and followed onto the deck. While covering his nose, he said in a somewhat strange voice, it doesn't look like a cult sacrifice either. Moreover, the ship returned by itself. A ghost ship. In a room on the 3rd floor of the Fortune Teller Club, Klein had already set up the corresponding astrolabe. Miss Anna, with a worried frown, whispered the information she knew about her fiancé who had gone out to sea, telling Klein so he could proceed with the upcoming divination. Okay, I understand. Klein carefully double-checked the things he had prepared. After setting up the corresponding astrolabe for the subsequent dream divination, he asked Miss Anna to step out for a moment. I understand the rules here, I know. Miss Anna nodded, clutching the hem of her dress, tears welling up in her eyes. Her voice was slightly choked. It's just, Mr. Diviner, if Joyce really ran into trouble. The police found me, but they didn't find Joyce's body. He still has a chance, he might still be alive, right? Klein sighed inwardly, but still maintained the attitude of a diviner and said, I will do my best to perform the divination for you, Miss Anna, but please also understand that divination is just divination, it is never omnipotent. Klein seemed to hear something crack and break inside his body. That was the reaction of the diviner potion further digesting. Divination is not omnipotent. This refers to the limitations of divination itself, meaning many things cannot be seen through divination, and after a result is divined, it will also vary depending on the diviner's interpretation. It also means that divination is just divination, it is a prediction of a certain possibility in the future, and also a test of a certain objective fact in reality. Klein sighed inwardly again, but quickly organized his diviner code of conduct. Miss Anna lowered her head and quietly left the room. Looking at the astrolabe he had drawn, Klein took a deep breath, picked up his fountain pen, and wrote the divination statement in ancient Hermes on a piece of paper beside him. I have to do something, and this is my first client, and it was assigned to me by the Fortune Teller Club. This might be a test, to see if he, this newly joined diviner, was qualified. Looking at the divination statement written in ancient Hermes on the paper, combined with the astrolabe divination, Klein simultaneously chanted silently. The current status of Miss Anna's fiancé, Joyce Meyer. The current status of Miss Anna's fiancé, Joyce Meyer. After a total of 7 repetitions, Klein fell backward, leaning against the chair, his consciousness gradually sinking as he allowed himself to fall into a deep sleep in that state. He wanted to use dream divination to quickly check on the situation of that Joyce Meyer and make an accurate judgment. With sufficient preliminary conditions, in a dream that was half awake and half vague, Klein vaguely saw a sea full of mist, and saw that on the sea, stained red with blood, many rotten and swollen bodies were floating at this moment, revealing their stark white bones, being gnawed by strange birds and fish. He saw a bizarre, dilapidated ship sailing in a place full of thick fog. On it, countless headless, limbless skeletons with only half their torsos were mixed with a few bewildered faces belonging to living people. Among them, a young blond man with a hooked nose seemed to have been scared out of his wits by his fear. He wanted to jump into the sea, but his body underwent some terrible mutation at this moment, his head being forcibly pulled from his neck with some terrifying strange force. What remained in Klein's impression was the head, thrown high, with a section of blood-stained spine attached, staring blankly at the perpetually misty sky, as if unwilling to close its eyes even in death. The dream ended here. Klein woke up from the dream divination in time, but he had certainly not expected to divine something like this when divining for an ordinary person. Ghost ship. Joey Smile encountered a ghost ship while sailing, and then something extremely terrifying happened. Klein's first thought was this. His thought was correct. Tingen City, dock area. After moving all the mostly decayed bodies off the ship, leaving only a very small number of useful ones on board, Nicholas Flamel, wearing a black silk top hat and a matching black tailcoat, appeared on the ship. He adjusted his top hat, scanned the surroundings, and then reached into the historical mist, pulling out the figure of a young man wearing a white short-sleeved shirt and khaki trousers. After leaving the historical mist and appearing as a historical void image, the young man's stiff expression gradually became more lively. Nicola pressed his hand against the brim of his top hat and said in a low voice, There's been a variable. It seems so. This ship returned in the form of a ghost ship, and that, chick descent, container from the original plan, Triss, is not among the bodies on this ship. Tang looked at the ship's deck, which looked as if it had been washed with blood, and then scanned the marionettes that had all turned into corpses. His originally purely black pupils instantly widened, causing the whites of his eyes to be almost entirely stained with an ominous, dull blackness, like a bottomless ocean. Scene after scene flashed through those eyes, which now appeared incredibly black. Then, Tang interpreted what he had divined as an angel king. There's a problem with the seal in the Sea of Mist. A new, unstable pollution point has appeared in that sea area. Triss should still be alive. They were taken by the ghost ship. Speaking of this, Tang paused. Something is wrong with Triss. He seems to have broken free from the manipulation and pollution of the Alisuhad's pen and fate to a certain extent. Sounds like a ghost story, especially combined with these already rotten marionettes. Nicola looked at the many skeletal corpses with hardly any good flesh left and said, because theoretically speaking, the authority of the audience pathway sequence 1 Alisuhad's pen and the sequence 1 the high pathway fate to manipulate destiny, reality, and development is already vastly different from that of a mere sequence 8 instigator. There's no reason Triss should be able to break free from the double shackles of the Alisuhad's pen and fate and not follow the predetermined trajectory and development. Original, Nicola guessed. Perhaps, perhaps not. After all, the Sea of Mist is also close to the West Continent. In my divination, it's possible for ships that deviate from the safe route and encounter the pollution hidden in the Sea of Mist to undergo some kind of mutation. Tang said indifferently. He then glanced at the air, and the blackness in his eyes instantly vanished, replaced by a crystalline, brilliant color. He was observing the future fate through Euclidean space. As if he had suddenly discovered something interesting, Tang's mouth curved slightly. Ah, if that's the case, then it's interesting. Those useless marionettes will be sent to the basement of St. Peter's Hospital to serve as backup materials. Heh, a change is not a bad thing. An experienced writer should be able to handle any unexpected variables. Okay. A police officer heard the Angel King's historical projections instruction and responded loudly. After scanning the area, Tang walked into the captain's cabin, while Nicola remained on the deck, quietly gazing into the distance. To be honest, a ghost ship full of corpses entering the dock would cause some panic and attract the attention of others, but until now, let alone ordinary people, even the newspaper reporters who love to sensationalize haven't appeared here to cause any disturbance or chaos. Because this is the kingdom of error. Time, space, concepts, information, all things will show a certain degree of distortion, even if Mr. Error didn't intend to do so. Inside the captain's cabin of this ship that had become a ghost ship, the floor was similar to the deck outside. There were many solidified bloodstains on the floor that couldn't be washed away, emitting a rotten smell. This seemed to symbolize that something extremely terrifying had also happened in the captain's cabin. The bodies here had not yet been removed. Tang glanced at the body with its head separated, lying in the corner, still dragging a long piece of spine, the head so rotten that its face was unrecognizable. He reached out and snapped his fingers. The body suddenly moved, just like a marionette whose spirit body threads were being manipulated again. The head that had rolled into the corner returned to where it should have been. The rotten flesh wriggled and grew again, completing the badly decayed body. The dead have no spirit body threads, but one of the cryptic servant's extraordinary abilities is to summon the spirit body threads that an object, once possessed, retransforming it into their marionette, or something with marionette characteristics. Tang reached out again and pulled a pocket watch from the historical void. He snapped it open, and the decay and damage in the room underwent errors under a powerful and bizarre force, beginning to reverse. The entire ship returned to how it looked when it departed. The marionette captain, who had recovered and returned to normal from death, gasped heavily. Deep in his pupils, there was still a lingering terror and panic, as if he had encountered something extremely terrifying before death, which led to the tragic result of him, a sequence 6 storm blessed, dying without even putting up much resistance. Tell me specifically, what did you encounter? Because it was not a very important link, Tang didn't spend much effort on this aspect, but unexpectedly, an accident occurred in this not so important link. While opening the system interface and calling up the log about the marionette in front of him from the Bionic Mimicry Module interface, he lightly leapt and sat on a cabinet that was 1 person tall and relatively clean, asking, "Mr. Eggs." The marionette captain immediately reacted to the miracle that had occurred on his body. He lowered his head and said tremblingly, "We discovered a ghost ship. It came from the depths of the Sea of Mist. It was a ghost ship carrying many undead. When we encountered the ghost ship, we had already tried to send out distress signals to you and Mr. Flammel, but our distress signals sank into the sea and were not sent out. When that ghost ship approached, the module started reporting errors. The remaining living people on the ship were gone, especially that assassin who needed special attention. He seemed to have run into trouble when he encountered that ghost ship. Then, we who remained on the ship also completely lost consciousness. After that, all the marionettes, bionic mimicry module, were scrapped, and the spirit body threads could no longer connect to the marionettist or the bionic mimicry module, and they turned back into corpses. The living people are gone, but the marionettes remained on the ship instead." Hearing this, Tang asked back thoughtfully. "Yes," the marionette captain said very affirmatively. Although his consciousness was still a bit chaotic, that was indeed the situation at the time. Tang clicked his tongue in wonder. "This is interesting. My marionettes, even if their sequence is not high, it would at least require an angel with strong observational skills to distinguish them. Dealing with the bionic mimicry module requires first bypassing the system and the knowledge wilderness. Could that ghost ship have been created by some messy source material, throwing out some messy things? That possibility cannot be ruled out. After all, the end of the Sea of Mist is the West Continent, where the celestial worthies seal is hidden, and as the apocalypse approaches bit by bit, the strength of this seal is constantly decreasing. Of course, it could also be hidden sage. All right, rest well, your mission is complete." Patting away non-existent dust from his body, Tang nodded to the marionette captain. The marionette captain immediately showed a sincere smile, as if he had received a supreme reward. "Thank you, Mr. Eggs." His body fell backward after Tang left the captain's cabin, and his body began to rapidly rot. His head, with a section of spine, fell out. The captain's cabin, which had just been clean, tidy, and refreshed, also quickly, once again, returned to its original messy, foul-smelling state. After walking out of the captain's cabin, Tang began to flip through the system logs. "Host, this batch of marionettes lost connection several days ago, but the logs only started reporting errors when they approached Tingen City. The system has recently been cooperating with Nicola, using the small secret formula of Knowledge Emperor plus Time Worm plus Distinctive Pollution, Extraordinary Characteristics, Boon, to create subsystems and distribute them to all parasites who might be persecuted by Amon. A large amount of its computing power is at Miskatonic University, and the remaining computing power distributed among all the marionettes is not much." Tang said, It's not your problem. Something high-level did some concealment to prevent an Angel King from rushing over to deal with it as soon as the marionettes had a problem. It's a normal trick to fool people and delay time. Even if I were directly controlling them, under this concealment, I wouldn't notice any problems for a while. However, what concerns me most about this matter is, who on the ship needed such a great effort to put on such a show? Triss, what could that Sequence 8 do? Rather than thinking about what he can do, it's better to think about what others can do with this Sequence 8. Hearing Nicola's words, Tang looked in a certain direction. He pondered, a vessel for Chick's descent. But this should require Chick's ring and the original's gaze to achieve. Given that Triss hasn't come into contact with the secrets of the witch sect's upper echelons, he shouldn't be a significant piece on the board, at most just a backup plan. So, either the person is special, or the situation is special. As a diviner who manipulates the most top-tier deciphering scholars, Tang's ability to associate ideas was naturally very strong. Indirectly disrupting my plans in certain small details. Trying to sabotage some events. This is meaningless and doesn't resemble Adam's style at all. Neither overly coincidental events nor audiences exist. Moreover, in this matter, he has no reason to deal with us, and even less need to waste time on such minor details. Witches are not uncommon, and there are plenty of opportunities to deal with George III and prevent him from becoming a god. Adam doesn't need to arrange such a small fry to specifically cause him trouble. Then it becomes very interesting. Is the designer my friend or my enemy? To be able to design my marionette, the level must not be too low. Coupled with the special circumstances in the Mist Sea, it instantly broke all the automatic defense functions of the bionic mimicry module and interfered with the log reporting. This is suspected to be the Hidden Sage's masterpiece. I now know that the Hidden Sage is not manipulated by the knowledge wilderness. So, is this matter related to those outer gods and those old ones? But that makes it even more interesting. What kind of snowball effect can a sequence 8 cause? There is indeed this possibility, Tang. Hearing Tang's murmuring, Nicholas said seriously, after all, they absolutely do not want a Lord of the Mysteries to be born before the apocalypse arrives. In this matter, their attitude will be unprecedentedly unified. Even the smallest screw might play a role that we cannot anticipate at certain times. The apocalypse is approaching, and they will not give up. Then let them try. Tang scoffed at the words, looking rather lazily at the old bloodstains on the deck. I'd really like to see what these guys can do with the power that has infiltrated the real world through the barrier of the original creator. After all, they had cleared out the indulgence faction of the Rose School on the South Continent and killed many followers of the fallen Mother Goddess, Desire Mother Tree, and other evil gods on the North Continent. As the apocalypse approaches, the irreconcilable conflict between the outer gods and Earth humans is becoming increasingly severe, and they are already in a life and death situation. The situation couldn't get any worse. Facing unexpected circumstances, Tang could only adapt as they came. Looking at the big sun overhead, he narrowed his eyes. Honestly, never before have I felt the ring of destiny was so troublesome as this time, especially regarding Triss's disappearance. My divination gave me a bizarre, predetermined fate that is about to arrive, a vague prophecy that the ring has already formed. I saw some somewhat unreal fragments of the future, but this was strongly interfered with by a high-level being in the domain of fate, and at the same time, there seems to be a little. He paused. As a bestower of the domains of fate, and destiny, the actual controller of Euclidean space, a reader who has seen the future, an outsider to the world, a scholar of time, a marionette of fate, and the final fate, Tang felt that Triss's disappearance and the annihilation of the marionette group were far from as simple as they appeared on the surface. Right, the apocalypse is approaching, and all anomalies must stir to fit the basic characteristics of this era and the chaotic and disorderly tone, isn't that right? Withdrawing his gaze from the sun overhead, Tang looked at Nicola. Let all the Miskatonic University investigators go out and see if we can find Triss before the anomaly erupts. After finding him, there's no need to turn him into a marionette or parasitize him to cooperate with us. Deploy angels, and completely kill him from the physical to the spiritual level, so as not to give the original witch or those who took him away a chance to exploit him. I have a premonition that not killing this witch, who has already escaped the control of fate and Alisuhad's pen, might cause a future that is not very friendly to us to occur. All right, Nicola nodded. Regarding his marionettist's divination results, he had no need to refute. Their figures gradually disappeared. The moment they left, a bizarre purple flame instantly engulfed the steam-powered sailing ship docked at the pier, igniting it along with the surrounding seawater. When the sea surface fell silent once again, there was nothing left here. Find Triss, kill Triss, completely erase this humanoid monster, Nicholas Flamel, who has been determined to need sealing, from body to soul. Don't say it anymore. Inside the empty, bizarre sailing ship, Triss clutched his head, wildly banging it against the corner of the lowest level of the ship. The bizarre sailing ship had long since sailed out of the foggy sea and was now being propelled by some strange force, sailing along a seemingly predetermined route. Don't say it anymore. Don't. That's not me. That's absolutely not me. The instigator who should have been inciting others to commit crimes was now like a beast lacking reason, roaring and howling madly at the empty surroundings on the lowest level of the sailing ship, as if he had lost control and was being ravaged by a large amount of complex, incomprehensible information, leaving only the shell of a person, without human thought or reason. While shouting, "That's not me. That's absolutely not me," he kept banging his head against the wooden ship planks that had long since rotted from being soaked for too long. The wooden planks had long been unable to withstand the repeated impacts, and salty seawater mixed with a fishy smell poured in from outside into this ghost ship that was empty except for Triss. Triss's body, with its vacant eyes, floated in the seawater. The instigator's hair, soaked in the seawater, was actually slowly growing longer, and some evil, spider-like threads floated out from his body, but he was immersed in the bizarre, various crazy, fearful, unfamiliar, and incomprehensible images in his mind and did not realize this. While coughing and choking, he also seemed to have given up struggling, staring blankly at the ceiling. Don't go on like this. I will die. Don't go on like this. I will die. I will definitely die. Everything started from the time when the ship sailing in the mist sea not long ago encountered a ghost ship. In fact, Triss couldn't remember exactly what happened at the time. He originally intended to use the crew on the ship as a means to digest the instigator, but he didn't expect to encounter a ghost ship attack in the Mist Sea. Most of the sailors on the ship died almost instantly, and he, along with the remaining few survivors, were also controlled by the ghost ship and boarded that ship. Triss didn't remember the final outcome of those who boarded the ghost ship with him, and he assumed it wasn't good. Triss wasn't doing too well either. This ghost ship seemed to possess some terrifying characteristic that made him feel dizzy ever since he boarded the ship. His mind was constantly filled with, repeating, many stories that he seemed extremely familiar with, stories unfolding from his first-person perspective. He was very clear at first that this was not everything he had experienced himself, as if something was slowly devouring him, replacing him, and the intruder's memories were merging with his own memories, forming a completely new individual. Triss was very clear about this at first, but the longer he stayed on this ghost ship, the more confused Triss became about the difference between him and her. Fragments were still flashing constantly, and the clear images within them were as if Triss himself had experienced them. After an unknown period in this state, Triss seemed to finally recover from the bizarre, crazy, suffocating feeling that seemed to tear his soul into pieces. I am me, I am not me. Am I Triss, or Triss? Triss's body floated out of the bottom hold of the bizarre sailing ship. He saw a city in the distance, shrouded in a hazy mist in the darkness. For some reason, the seawater around him suddenly froze with the frost of a witch. He crawled out of the bone-chilling seawater and lay on the strangely appearing ice surface, then stood up again, and the abnormally cold black witch flame enveloped his body. Triss's painful expression gradually calmed down, as if he had reached some kind of balance with himself. His abnormally active and restless brain finally became peaceful at this moment. He looked at his hands, and then at the city in the distance, which was both familiar and strange, with a sense of incredible astonishment. Am I back? He was back. In this world, is there really such a miracle? As if thinking of something, a strange smile almost uncontrollably appeared on Triss's lips. I'm back. Ha 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 ha. I'm actually back. This is a miracle. No, this is a curse. As expected, I'm someone who should go to hell. But isn't hell right here? But now, everything hasn't happened yet, there is still a possibility of saving everything. Triss, who was laughing hysterically, almost to the point of madness, instantly became expressionless. He looked at his male body, a hint of mockery on his lips, and muttered to himself. A woman who should have undergone sex change has actually changed back into a man, and, surprisingly, still possesses the power of the despair witch. Ha ha ha, this world, this screwed up world. His figure quickly disappeared, entering an ancient bronze mirror inside the ghost ship and vanishing into the sea area next to the ghost ship. He was very skilled, so skilled that he was definitely not an instigator or a low-sequence Beyander with a sealed artifact with similar abilities. Ruin Kingdom, Backland. The docks, even when night fell, this gathering place for ships from various countries and heading to various countries was still bustling with people. Workers loading and unloading goods were still busy with their lives at night, under the light of the large lamps. In the bustling area, the Miskatonic University investigator responsible for monitoring here narrowed his eyes. Even though he was a little sleepy, he was still searching for the assassin that Miskatonic University was looking for, who might have drifted here. It's strange, why do the crew members from a ship that departed from Tingen City and was heading to the Mist Sea also need to be investigated simultaneously here in Backland? Maybe it's because that guy has something special about him. Investigators across the country have been mobilized, not to mention those at sea. This is not a small operation, it will definitely attract attention from all sides. However, Mr. Flammel's judgment has never been wrong. He must have his own reasons for doing this. Another Miskatonic University investigator said. The first Miskatonic University investigator who spoke nodded. Just as he was about to say something else, his voice suddenly paused. He pointed at the strange man who appeared out of thin air from the glass of a nearby shop near the docks and quickly reacted. They actually ran into him. Oh no, that crew member who disappeared in the Mist Sea, ran to Backland. How did he get here? That person seemed unaware that his appearance had been discovered by the two Miskatonic University investigators. By the time his spiritual intuition reacted, he saw that the two Miskatonic University investigators had already finished chanting Mr. Flammel's honorific name. Forget about being brave or going up there and capturing the person first. For such a big trouble, such a potential human bomb, just chant the honorific name and summon the Angel King first before considering the issue of rewards. The embodiment of all incorrect errors, fallacies, and loopholes, the hour hand that guides destiny. I pray for your gaze, I pray for your favor. The target is here, he has appeared at Backland Docks. With a whoosh, the lights at Backland Docks seemed to instantly become dark and dim. Triss's figure also dissipated, seemingly entering the mirror world once again. But this time, he did not successfully enter the mirror world, but instead arrived in a kingdom filled with various distorted concepts and made extremely absurd by bizarre grafting. Triss quickly realized what had happened. His hair stood on end, and emotionless, grayish-white eyes constantly grew from the tips of his hair. This was the incomplete mythical creature form of witches, a true Gorgon. At the same time, not far away, another Miskatonic University member who had not chanted Flammel's honorific name reached out and grabbed forward. A figure wearing a beige short-sleeved shirt and linen trousers was quickly pulled out of the historical mist and appeared in the real world. His expression gradually became lively at that moment. Tang felt a different aura. The Ring of Destiny, and the high-dimensional Overseer. He looked at Triss, who was blocked by the avatar that Nicola had descended, and narrowed his eyes. A mad high-dimensional Overseer, is this, self-salvation? Chapter 280 to 279. How did you come back? Possessing mirror travel, demigod-level curses, pathogens, and a special, strange divinity, Talisi, who should have only been a Sequence 8 instigator, was not the normal despair witch. Tang's left eye became abnormally dark, calm and waveless. His right eye seemed to be connected to another world, and everything in front of him unfolded rapidly in a flat form. Not the despair witch, but the digestion progress doesn't lie. There's no Beander characteristic, but despair is the power brought by the gift. Talisi, who was pulled into the God Kingdom by Nicola. No, in the current situation, Tang felt that he should call her Triss. Triss Chick, the witch in the original work who died in love, by destroying herself after forcibly borrowing power from the original witch to prevent George III from becoming the Black Emperor and to avenge Prince Edsac. The witch who died in love in the original work. But looking at the situation, Tang did not directly intervene in Nicola's action against this witch. At this time, he was acting as an observer and analyst, attempting to analyze the actions and problems of this witch who had suddenly lost control and should have been heading towards a predetermined ending in Fate and Ring of Destiny. After the investigator from Miskatonic University behind him respectfully bowed to him and then retreated to avoid disturbing the historical void image of the Angel King before him, Tang took out a crystal-carved monocle from the historical void image. He put it on his right eye socket, and through the dual decryption of Euclidean space and the borrowed power of the thief pathway's uniqueness, Tang quickly analyzed the source of Triss Chick's abnormal state. A strong sense of Ring of Destiny, and it also comes with a bit of. Tang frowned. For a moment, he couldn't describe that strange feeling himself. It was very similar to the things he had encountered on the dependents who believed in the high-dimensional Overseer in the historical void images in the universe before, but there was also something else mixed in, something special and familiar to him. It's a bit like the messy awakening of characters in novels I saw in the system before. They knew their future and therefore wanted to try to change it. He immediately thought of such a situation but quickly dismissed it. This was not Triss Chick's own problem. It was the masterpiece of the Ring of Destiny and the high-dimensional Overseer. After all, this kind of awakening was not a good thing. The underlying logic of this world was madness. As a transmigrator, Tang understood this more and more after becoming a Sequence 1 great angel and felt the same way. In a world where the essence and underlying logic are madness, once they realize that they are just characters in a book, then madness, loss of control, destruction, violence, and various negative emotions will erupt in an instant. In an era where cognition and knowledge are also toxic, this kind of awakening is essentially a form of pollution. It would drive people crazy and kill them, incurable. In the pollution of the Supreme One's fate regarding future, Tang could also feel a bit of this pollution power from the transmigrator's unique status. Everyone is a person in a book, and people in a book will naturally follow the trajectory predetermined by the author to achieve the ideal ending. The Sequence 9 of the Supreme One gift system, the potion name is Reader. Although this is somewhat similar to the Reader pathway, the structural logic is completely different. The essence of this pathway involves the identity of a true transmigrator. From the perspective of mysticism, Tang, as a transmigrator, a true transmigrator, is inherently a symbol in this world, a unique symbol. If Triss had awakened that memory on her own, she would immediately become a node for the Supreme One to inject pollution into the current dimension and time. This couldn't happen without reason. Even Nicola and Brooks were his marionettes, essentially part of him, so it didn't matter if they were eroded. This was why the bionic mimicry module could operate stably without exploding on the spot. If a new node, a new source of pollution, appeared, Tang, who had the unique symbol of a transmigrator, and was at the sequence 1 level, couldn't fail to notice. But he did feel the familiar pollution of fate and future from the Supreme One pathway from Triss Chick, which couldn't be faked. So the initial guess was correct. According to Superstar Dominator's description, the high-dimensional overseer went truly insane a long time ago, and that time point, after confirmation, basically coincides with the time I transmigrated here. The high-dimensional overseer and the Ring of Destiny, these two old things, have been confirmed to be pathways that can intersect and swap with me. They are pulling this stunt. The high-dimensional overseer is making a tentative attempt at self-salvation to get rid of its current state, and what is the Ring of Destiny for? Tang's gaze was fixed on Triss Chick, who was struggling to hold on in front of Nicola. It's very strange, truly very strange. Although the initial goal was indeed to directly eliminate the hidden danger of this problem, after seeing the strange pollution on Triss Chick that came from himself, Tang had Nicola focus on trapping her and did not kill her immediately. Of course, this could also be wrong. The Ring of Destiny and the high-dimensional overseer's plan might be this. They are waiting for the opportunity for Triss Chick not to be eliminated by me immediately. But he could afford to lose on this matter. Host, aren't you going to eliminate it directly? The scan shows that this bad thing has a lot of messy things on it. No, wait a little longer. Tang's historical void image became more and more real. His main body in Tingen City had entered Euclidean space in the historical mist, and most of his attention was focused here. If necessary, he would directly pull his future self, who is the Supreme One, to indiscriminately pollute the present with fate, and neutralize the power of the high-dimensional overseer and the Ring of Destiny. Meanwhile, above Source Castle, Mr. Error, who was sitting at the head of the bronze long table, lightly tapped the bronze long table. His gaze seemed to penetrate the layered, boundless gray fog of Source Castle, casting his gaze from above the spirit world, observing the anomaly at Backland Dock. Black Night Goddess, more noble than the starry sky, more ancient than eternity, you are the Lord of Crimson, the Mother of Concealment, the Queen of Calamity and Fear, the Lord of Slumber and Silence. In the ancient palace on the main peak of the Hornassus Mountains, where countless corpses were hanging, a man's voice echoed in the empty, silent palace. The man sitting in the ancient high-backed chair was lowering his head at this moment, slowly chanting the Black Night Goddess's honorific name. Tang asked Antigonus to contact the Black Night Goddess and ask this god to keep an eye on the Star Realm to prevent those old things from suddenly causing trouble. Ruin Kingdom, Backland. Tang looked up at the sky. Above the night without a single cloud hung countless stars, jointly guarding the enormous red moon. The moon has turned red. Tonight is a blood moon. In the god kingdom full of error. Nicola, who had already stolen all the abilities of despair, pain, and joy, adjusted his black silk top hat. His calm, waveless light brown eyes looked at Triss Chick, who was kneeling on the ground, constantly panting, her eyes filled with confusion, hatred, and fear, but not a hint of timidity. With a slight smile, he asked, "Looks like you don't know me. You are, Huff, of the Thief Pathway, Huff, an angel." In the brief and intense struggle, having used all his means, Triss had already recognized the chasm-like gap between himself and the person in front of him. Perhaps only at that moment, before death, with the help of the original witch's power, would he have a chance to injure the opponent and attack him. The essential difference made Triss feel despair, but he was already used to this despair, so Triss was unusually calm. Triss gritted his teeth. As soon as he had a thought of counter-attacking, all those thoughts immediately disappeared. They were stolen. Yes, Nicola nodded, showing no intention of concealing anything. But as far as I know, there is a blasphemer in the Thief Pathway. Aren't you afraid of him coming? Triss was outwardly fierce but inwardly weak. As the former despair witch and having been in the mysticism world for a long time, Triss knew a lot of extremely important knowledge about the Beyonder world. Among them, also included the blasphemer, Amon, the public enemy of all Beyonders in the Thief Pathway. Triss wanted to use the name of the blasphemer, Amon, to scare away this thief pathway angel whose true name was unknown. After all, at the current time point, many things had not yet happened, and the existence of the blasphemer, Amon, was enough to make the thief pathway angel intercepting him hesitant. We've already delayed for several minutes, huff, perhaps he has already arrived nearby. Although, if that blasphemer arrived, he certainly wouldn't have a good outcome either. Or perhaps he wouldn't come. Blasphemer. Nicola chuckled, his posture relaxed, and his voice also carried a hint of anticipation. If he really comes, then perhaps I should thank you for your blessing, Mr. Talisi. Triss, who was just about to reply with the anticipated answer that this thief pathway angel might say, he won't come, and was preparing to ask in return, why do you think he can't find you? And, are you sure he won't come? Fell silent the moment he heard these words filled with anticipation. Triss, who was a version behind the times. Triss, kneeling on the ground, was somewhat bewildered and at a loss, but he clearly saw that this thief pathway angel before him was not afraid of Amon, and even was genuinely joyful about this possible development. It was like seeing a dog that had been wandering outside for a long time, joyfully waiting for the other party to throw themselves into their embrace. That's not a polite metaphor, and it's very blasphemous. Nicola said unhurriedly, but I don't actually object to your idea, although I prefer to compare Amon to a gift box with a somewhat disgusting wrapping, hiding sweets. Every time you open it, it's a surprise. Of course, he didn't care about Triss's metaphor of a stray dog, or whatever. After all, only Amon was offended. Triss was startled. He hadn't made a sound just now, so he immediately realized that he had been parasitized. Nicola acted as if he hadn't seen the change in Triss's expression. Standing in the center of the world where the sky emitted black sunlight and the moon emitted bright moonlight, a world full of errors and fallacies, he looked at Triss and asked, his voice still carrying a smile. I'm a little curious, what happened to you? Triss's expression twisted for a moment. In that instant, his ability to suppress his own desires had been stolen, and at the same time, Nicola had given this strange despair which, more desire to confide. Nicola temporarily had no intention of deeply parasitizing the other party. After all, this strange witch still had the power of the Ring of Destiny and the high-dimensional overseer remaining on her. It was hard not to suspect that this was a large pit specifically designed for Tang and him to step into. Parasitizing or turning her into a marionette might trigger a thunderclap. Nicola pulled down the brim of his top hat and looked at Triss, waiting for his answer. Triss bit his lip tightly. Although he was only a Sequence 8 instigator, his appearance gave people a particularly vulnerable and pitiful feeling that needed to be cared for. This was the change brought by the gift, power, but this change did not cause Triss to change gender on the spot. I don't know what happened either. Our ship was attacked by a ghost ship when it reached the Mist Sea. Everyone else on the ship died. Perhaps some didn't die, but I don't know where they are now. Triss said the truth that couldn't be more true. After realizing that he had no leverage and couldn't resist, he immediately continued to speak according to the other party's words. You can check, that ship came from Tingan City. But when speaking of Tingan City, Triss's expression was momentarily blank and startled. It was as if he had just dug out memories from fragmented, scattered memories that were completely different from his former memories. You are. His pupils, upon seeing that calm, waveless face, his voice cracked slightly. Nicola Flamel, you are the great angel of the thief pathway. You killed Amon. This fragmented, unconnected, and completely different development made Triss freeze on the spot, as if he had suffered an extremely terrifying impact. That description is not accurate, Talisi. Or, should I call you Triss? Triss chick. Nicola slowly curved his lips and asked very gently, you should know that what I want to ask is not what happened to you on that ship. What I want to know is, how did you manage to, come back to this time point? Back to this node where the Backland Great Smog hasn't happened, you haven't become a witch, Edsac Augustus hasn't died, George III hasn't attempted to become the Black Emperor, and you, similarly, haven't sacrificed yourself for revenge and died in love. This node, Chapter 281, 280 New Plan. How did you come back? Hearing this question, Talisi Kike's pupils couldn't help but widen again. She seemed to have heard something terrifying, and her body trembled slightly, involuntarily shivering. Yeah, how did I come back? I should be dead, I should. Talisi Kike, who had already accepted that she had returned to the past, seemed to fall into a self-denying emotion in front of Nicola. She didn't even notice that Nicola's stance had changed, and the surrounding scene had also undergone a bizarre transformation. The bright moon in the sky turned blood red, and the black sun became clear and bright again. But the bizarre buildings around became increasingly distorted. They coiled and grew upwards, twisting to form one sky island after another. Fish swam in the sky, trees grew underground, and seemingly reasonable things began to become increasingly bizarre and distorted. In Nicola's light brown pupils, the figure of the despair witch in front of him was reflected. As an angel king who wields the authority of error, Nicola could sense the contradictory, abnormal, and mutually exclusive state in this despair witch. In this place is the kingdom of error. This state is like the future Te Lisi Kike in the original story being forcefully stuffed into another time and space in the past with a completely different trajectory. The past, present, and future were separated for various reasons. This error, caused by the contradiction, made it quite easy for Nicola to invade and initiate various fallacies in thought, logic, body, and power. Past, present, and future. Backland. The blood moon overhead emitted an indescribable beauty, and the proliferation of spirituality caused even the dark side of this city of 10,000 capitals to show signs of restlessness. The blood moon was not a normal astronomical phenomenon, as those astrologers believed. The gaze of the fallen mother goddess. Tang stood on the clear dock, looked up at the blood moon overhead, then lowered his eyes again, focusing his gaze on the kingdom of error, not far away. He pinched the monocle in his right eye socket, adjusted its position, and kept the displayed image stable. Tang looked at Te Lisi Kike, who had begun to suffer from the error contamination with Nicola's words, and murmured to himself. Past, present, and future, cause, effect, and process. Sending the future to the past becomes the future. Everything is presented in the present, forming a ring, in terms of time, causality, and fate. Well, this is indeed the specialty of the Ring of Destiny. The time node when the high-dimensional overseer went mad is highly consistent with the time node of my transmigration. This is not a coincidence. My transmigration caused a part of this ancient old one to be torn off by my power. This is not just because of transmigration, but also because I was observed by the high-dimensional overseer. Observation and being observed have never been a one-way connection. The observer can detect the state of the observed in real time, and the state of the observed can also affect the observer. As one of the most powerful outer gods in this world, the high-dimensional overseer holds authority in the domains of dimension, observation, fate, fantasy, and painting. The Supreme One pathway is very similar to the high-dimensional overseer's painter pathway, which has complete source material and extraordinary characteristics. Given that both have authority in the observation domain and possess a high degree of mystic similarity among all the old ones, it is not unreasonable that the high-dimensional overseer was the first to detect the problem. And the high-dimensional overseer, in a state of observation, passively read the knowledge of Lord of the Mysteries that I carried. So, he observed the knowledge and then went mad. Compared to the inhuman madness of outer gods, the high-dimensional overseer in this state will only go completely mad, completely out of control, and ready to self-destruct at any moment. The high-dimensional overseer killing the creatures who believed in him during the same period can corroborate Tang's conjecture. And also as one of the most powerful outer gods, the Ring of Destiny discovered the change in the predetermined fate. For this reason, he collaborated with the completely mad high-dimensional overseer for some reason. Before this old one completely self-destructed, the two outer gods sent a bit of power into the barrier, forming Te Lisi Kike, a witch in a strange state who awakened. This is a reasonable development and a quite reasonable speculation based on reality. The only question in this is, what does the Ring of Destiny want to do? To deal with me, but this amount of power, whether it's the power of fate or the power of observation, is not enough. Although an angel king cannot reach the level of a god, within the barrier, this level is enough for Tang to avoid 99.99% of the threats in the world. Furthermore, he is currently at the pinnacle of the diviner pathway, skilled in deception, and also controls the source castle. Even if those two old guys give him an incurable contamination, he can still resurrect from death, achieve resurrection through the marionette Nicola in the source castle, and use the high status of the source castle and the influence of Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun to isolate subsequent contamination. Can't beat them and can't run away and can't even die. If dying once is not enough, then die again. At that time, just use the extraordinary characteristics of the cryptic servant to exploit the resurrection from death bug of the miracle worker. At most, it's just temporarily losing the extraordinary characteristics of the cryptic servant. As an observer, he has experience. Amidst the myriad thoughts, Tang looked again at Te Lisi Kike, who was kneeling in front of Nicola, covering her head and painfully kowtowing, becoming somewhat neurotic and showing signs of disintegration from being questioned. He narrowed his eyes. Let her go and see the subsequent development, or don't let her go, reclaim some of the power of fate and the high-dimensional overseer, and supplement the authority of the Supreme One. It seems like two choices. Tang smiled slightly. How about killing her? To be honest, I'm a little curious, but only a little. Compared to fighting those old guys across a barrier, Tang preferred to go directly and slap the Ring of Destiny. Honestly, for something so clearly a trap, he felt it would explode in place even under his nose. Even if he was difficult to kill, it didn't mean there was nothing in the mystic world he didn't know. Host, why is it that the longer you live, the more you become? The system muttered. How does its host feel like the longer he lives, the more he can hide? Do you know why my grandpa is still alive? Tang asked faintly. Well, aren't there several resurrection backups? Of course not. Tang lowered his eyes, because my grandpa, that elder, never comments on others. You know, Tongzi, speaking human language is a quite complex subject. Hide what hide? This is called thinking of danger in times of safety. A gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall, understand? The system was puzzled, the system hesitated, the system suddenly realized. So he commented on the love between the original witch and the Black Emperor, became a mistress, and died. Tang, who was about to continue observing, paused, as if doubting what he had just heard. No, Tongzi, did you go to the knowledge wilderness and eat uncooked mushrooms again? Where did you get something so crazy? Official history isn't necessarily official, but unofficial history is definitely wild, hee. The system hummed. Life is boring, the system comments on humans. In the kingdom full of error. Nicola quietly walked in front of Te Lisi Kike, who was kneeling on the ground covering her head and painfully kowtowing. This angel king squatted down, his voice low but still gentle. So, do you think the present you returned to is real or fake? I once heard something very interesting. Well, maybe it was mentioned in a novel written by Rosal the Great. The so-called rebirth is just a beautiful dream woven by dream weavers before death to eliminate the deceased's last unwillingness, resentment, and hatred. Te Lisi Kike, have you really returned? Are you sure this is reality and not a final beautiful dream you had before death, made to satisfy your greed? If not, did you come back to save Edsac Augustus? To save Backland, or is it because of other, special, irresistible reasons? Who promised you? And what did he promise? Nicola's voice seemed to pass through layers of ripples, reaching Te Lisi Kike's ears. Te Lisi Kike's fragmented memory, as if she was about to have a split personality, and her personality were guided. The pain in her eyebrows gradually disappeared, and she almost murmured. Yes, I am here to save. No one, no god promised me anything. In this world, even those high and mighty gods cannot save us. The only ones who can save us are ourselves. Ah, well said. Tang sighed silently. No one can save you, only you can save yourselves. Well, that's the truth of the matter, and reality is also such a reality. I've decided. He took out a brand new medical record book from the system space. Let's not kill her. Let's handle it a bit, and then give this bomb to Chick. Tang took out an ordinary quill pen from the historical void again. After cultivating her, send this great gift that the two outer gods painstakingly sent to me to that special mirror world in the Fourth Epoch. He held the quill pen and wrote, Te Lisi Kike, in the name column of the medical record book. Lowering his eyes, the corner of Tang's mouth curved slightly. Then, with a bang, this bomb explodes, blowing up Chick, Alistair Tudor's entire arrangement, along with the entire special mirror world, into powder. With this, a perfect ending is achieved. Ah, what a pleasant ending. If things were that simple, how good would that be? There are always so many twists and turns in this world. But to do this, first, I need to control Te Lisi Kike, for my use. Although Fate and Alisuhad's pen can provide help, I also need to be vigilant that the Ring of Destiny might silently detonate Te Lisi Kike. In the case of only the most basic contamination, use emotions to weave a large net, fill life with marionettes, and weave a true illusion. For this, should I first turn Edsac Augustus into my marionette? After all, from the current situation, this prince is indeed Te Lisi Kike's weakness, even though they don't know each other, and Te Lisi Kike is an upright man. He was a little curious about what would happen next. As a reader, this kind of unpredictable development trajectory is like knowing what the ending looks like but having to fill in the process framework bit by bit, vivid, lively, and full of anticipation for the reader. So, do you want to make this deal? Tang's gaze shifted from looking at the kingdom of error to behind him, and he asked with a smile. Your Majesty, a middle-aged man wearing a black cloak, with black hair and blue eyes, a square face, and a majestic demeanor, emerged slowly from the night that could not be illuminated by light in the world filled with the blood moon, at some unknown time. This serious man in a black cloak looked indifferently at the young man who was smiling at him but whose eyes were full of mischievousness and scrutiny, the image from the historical void. He turned his gaze away and looked at the kingdom filled with error, not far away. Return to your city, said the ancestor of the Augustus family, Protector, William I, in a deep voice. We had an agreement, Tang Eggers. Yes, my dear Majesty. Tang put away the quill pen and medical record book in his hand, not feeling unhappy or angry because of the other party's attitude, but the apocalypse is approaching. His smile never disappeared, and it even grew larger, his mouth starting to tear, splitting to the ears. When the red moon falls from the sky, can you, who have not become a god, survive under those circumstances, under the gaze of those unspeakable great existences, and protect your subjects? Protector, William I turned his gaze back to Tang. As you know, I have always wanted to cooperate with the royal family to a certain extent. This is beneficial to me and also beneficial to you, isn't it? Your descendant, yes, that king, Tang said casually, he seems to be getting a little close to the witch sect. What's wrong? Are you planning to cooperate with the witch sect to do something that the gods don't want to see? Protector, William I was not surprised or astonished by Tang's words. For these two angel kings in Tingen City, it was not a simple matter to hide from them, and he didn't intend to hide it for that long. However, if that king is so willing to pay, Tang rotated his right wrist with his left hand, why not cooperate with us? Compared to the witch sect, I think we should be a more trustworthy strategic partner, shouldn't we? Moreover, Tang smiled, he seems to have killed quite a few of my marionettes. The slave trade prepared for the Black Emperor's mausoleum. It's hard to guess where those slaves came from. Protector, William I's breathing paused for a moment. In this question, this ancient angel who had survived since the Fourth Epoch clearly sensed something. He asked in a deep voice, how many marionettes have you made in total? How many in the entire Ruin Kingdom have already become your marionettes? That question, Tang shrugged indifferently, who knows, there are too many. A marionettist has absolute control over their marionettes, but now Tang is controlling quite a few marionettists, and those marionettists are controlling new marionettes. Furthermore, with the bionic mimicry module available, as long as the subsequent module coverage keeps up and he is given enough time, filling the entire North Continent should not be a problem. As for now, 1%, 1/10, or 1/5, he carefully sensed it, spitting out numbers one by one. When he said 1/5, Tang paused for a moment, then the corner of his mouth curved slightly, and he slowly said, but I prefer the number 3. After all, among all the spiritual numbers with special meaning, 3 is also a very important one. The 3 pillars of the universe, the 3 fixed sequence 1 Beander characteristics for each pathway, the Trinity, 3 begets all things. Tang liked this number. 1/3, the Ruin Kingdom, at least 1/3 of the people are already this guy's marionettes. Protector, William I looked at Tang with slightly frozen eyes, his voice becoming deeper and more majestic, you should know what you are doing. Never mind the South Continent, in the various kingdoms of the North Continent, without anyone noticing, so many marionettes have already appeared. In the current kingdoms of the North Continent, how many marionettes exist in the political centers, military centers, and even within the church and the royal family? How did this guy's marionettes manage to be completely unnoticed? No, even if they were noticed, they were ignored. This founding emperor felt a faint sense of unease, not just because of the sheer number of marionettes, but also the fundamental issues these marionettes brought. This would shake their anchors, and this is an act that no angel and no orthodox church can tolerate. Yes, I have always known what I am doing, just like His Majesty the King now. Tang spoke with a smile, as if he didn't know that this action of his would incur public wrath. Your Majesty, there's no need to be so worried. I haven't gone mad enough to turn everyone on the North Continent into my marionettes, nor do I have any intention of moving the Angel's anchors. That is meaningless to me. Or perhaps, in your impression, I am such a ruthless person. Do you have such a bad impression of me? Protector, William I was silent about this. He suddenly recalled the day he first came into contact with this Sequence 1 of the Seer pathway. Who in their right mind would stand by someone's bedside in the middle of the night to scare them? If he hadn't already been a great angel at Sequence 1, being stealthily entered into his bedroom in the middle of the night and hung by the bed to cosplay a corpse would probably have scared him to death from cardiac arrest. Isn't this just in case the Ruin royal family doesn't accept us and decides to fight us with sealed artifacts, angels, and the like, causing heavy losses to both sides? At that time, Tang twisted his head 360 degrees, performing a "bring me your head" for William I, who was clearly startled and wanted to slap him to death. To prevent the landlord from not accepting, first hang yourself in the landlord's bedroom. The cowardly group scored big. William I took a deep breath, calmed his emotions, and repeated internally, "Those from the tricky three are not really human," reminding himself to control his emotions and not slap the person to death right now. All right. Tang saw the founding emperor of the Ruin Kingdom's silence and shrugged helplessly. He refocused his gaze on the Divine Kingdom on the ground where Te Lisi Kike and Nicholas Flamel were, and said indifferently, 1/3 is already the limit. It took 1,000 years to reach this level. At this speed, before the apocalypse arrives, I may not be able to meet the minimum anchor requirements of all gods. So, you are going to use Alistair Tudor and Chick's arrangement? William I's expression was a little strange. Yes, Tang did not deny it, they are all part of this planet. How can they not contribute? Even if they die, pull them up to work for him. As for the mess that Chick and Alistair Tudor made in the Fourth Epoch, the Big Thunder Underground in Trier, let this witch go and test it out first. Protector, William I fell silent. After seemingly thinking for a moment, he slowly said, 200 years ago, the out-of-control Vermonda Champagne Sauron, that Conqueror Beander characteristic on him, is it in your hands now? You want to gather a Red Priest? He didn't ask the latter question, but Tang understood the hidden meaning beneath the founding emperor's question. I'm not too sure about that. Tang smiled, not answering the question directly, but William I knew he had guessed correctly. So, one of your purposes in cooperating with me is also the Conqueror Beander characteristic in Augustus's hands. William I said it very assertively, as if he knew Tang's plan for sure. Tang neither admitted nor denied, just smiled. Another strange silence fell between William I and Tang. After an unknown amount of time, he finally changed the subject and looked at Tang. You and Adam are very similar. Many people say that, especially Aemon. Tang spoke. He squeezed the monocle in his right eye socket and said with a bit of mockery. He said that a guy like me who holds up the banner of justice, claiming to be preparing for the apocalypse, doesn't care about sacrifice, doesn't care about others, doesn't treat human lives as important at all, especially in certain matters, is even worse than his fanatical brother. He smiled helplessly at this founding emperor. You say that a naturally born mythical creature can actually say such human words. I don't know whether to say it's progress or regression. But your humanity has always been well maintained. This majestic founding emperor regained his usual indifference and said lightly, because of the justice and apocalypse you speak of. Because these are all necessary sacrifices. Who knows, maybe it is. After all, for mythical creatures, for us who are about to face the apocalypse, some things can indeed be abandoned. So, Your Majesty, what do you mean? Tang turned his head again and looked at William I. Edsac Augustus, this child, will you give him to me? Cooperate, or not cooperate? His tone was as if discussing what to eat for breakfast tomorrow. All right, William I was the same, it was as if he had already considered his answer. In their somewhat casual discussion, they had already decided the fate of a prince. At this moment, Te Lisi Kike, who was already deeply immersed in error and loophole, seemed to sense something. His already grayish-white eyes passed over Nicola, who was squatting in front of him, and looked into the distance of this divine kingdom filled with countless errors. His gaze seemed to penetrate the divine kingdom, looking in a certain direction. Nicola adjusted his hat and said with a smile, Mr. Te Lisi, As long as we follow the predetermined fate, no one will be sad, and no one will feel unfortunate. We are all marionettes of fate, everything is already destined. Outside the Divine Kingdom, William I had already left. Tang unhurriedly took out a notebook from his system space. He was writing his story, and now, he was going to add a new character. A card was added to the chessboard, who knows what new changes will occur. A bizarre ghost ship not far from Backland folded up. The countless vengeful spirits and evil souls on this ship appeared on the ship one after another. They were painfully strung up by their necks with one line after another, their bodies rapidly rose, hanging from the broken mast, their figures like substance, swaying. Then, the scarlet moon in the sky suddenly magnified, the stars twinkled, and a supreme, infinitely distant existence cast its gaze here. The vengeful spirits and evil souls on the ship, already turned into marionettes, entered their predetermined destiny and fate. They quickly disintegrated under the gaze of this infinitely high, infinitely distant gaze, being reduced to materials with partial bestowed power. The indiscriminate pollution of fate completely destroyed this ghost ship that still retained the power of the high-dimensional overseer in the Ring of Destiny. Backland, East Borough. Lisi Kike stumbled through the somewhat chaotic dark alley. He seemed to finally be unable to hold on and collapsed onto the ground, leaning against the wall and gasping for air. This is real, this is real. The chaotic memories were gradually sorted out by Lisi, but some things that were different from his memories were somehow ignored by Lisi. From the docks all the way to the East Borough, Lisi looked at this prosperous, familiar yet extraordinarily strange metropolis and inexplicably wanted to laugh. He looked at his hands, and then, as if he could no longer suppress the joy in his heart, understanding that this was reality, he began to laugh softly, and then even started to laugh out loud, laughing heartily. He laughed a little hysterically. As he laughed, tears gradually filled his eyes, sliding down to his chin. This is great, nothing has happened, nothing has started yet. Ha ha ha, this is great, this is great. The tenants living nearby heard someone laughing madly in the middle of the night and didn't feel surprised or noisy. Things like this always happened here, they were already used to it. And as he laughed, Lisi finally stopped. He stumbled back to his feet. No, I can't waste time here. He needed to advance as quickly as possible, replenish Beander characteristics, and return to the level of despair as soon as possible. Otherwise, the Backland Great Smog would happen again. In the black night sky, an enormous scarlet moon filled with blood color, like an opened eye, made those who gazed at this blood moon feel inexplicably uneasy. At this time, under the gaze of a blood moon and countless stars, two crows flew across the sky. They circled and watched the stumbling figure. The area around their left eyes, hidden in the darkness, had a strange protruding mark, as if they were wearing a monocle. But soon, an inconspicuous sound of something cutting through the air broke the silence of the night. These two black crows were struck down by something, hitting the ground with a thud, twitching all over, and quickly died. From their mouths crawled out several translucent insects with 12 segments. These insects also quickly twisted and died. I think we should establish a crow protection association, and also, insects, cockroaches, ants, mice, moth protection associations. Every time you parasitize, it's like a mass extinction. Amen, what do you think? Tang, who walked out of the shadow not illuminated by the moonlight with a stone, looked at the two dead crows on the ground and slowly said, "Hey." Amon's voice came from somewhere. "I didn't know when you became so concerned about the lives of those, well, what you humans often call pests. There's a saying called, keyboard warrior, I don't know if you know it." Tang shrugged, "But if you keep parasitizing these things, then don't come to my side next time. It's so dirty." Amon was silent for a moment, seemingly a little speechless. Then, this former god of deceit slowly said, "Aren't you going to continue your cultivation plan in Tingen? Aren't you going to nurture your seedlings that haven't grown up yet? Are you so at ease leaving him alone, poor thing, staying in Tingen? How can you see a rainbow without experiencing wind and rain?" Tang stood in front of the crows, corpses, not deliberately looking for Amon's other avatars around, and said a little lazily, "Besides, given the situation in Tingen, it doesn't seem to make much difference whether I'm there or not, and your avatar isn't having a great time playing. Amon, who had an avatar parasitizing Leonard. You will mess up sooner or later." Amon's tone somehow carried a hint of mocking mischief. "Haven't you learned enough from Rosel's matter?" Tang, who had previously treated Rosel the Great as a Japanese person, his expression froze. About that, I'll take that as a thank you for reminding me. He said sincerely, I will pay attention. May I have the honor of thanking your main body? Thank you for reminding me of such a big matter. Amon chuckled, guess, not guessing, not guessing. Tang played with the stone in his hand, tossing it casually. After so many years, he had accepted the state of Amon's main body hiding tightly while his avatars wandered around. Before, it was either you die or I live, but now they could even chat for a few sentences. Soon, Amon asked with renewed interest, when do you plan to find Medici? Immediately, Tang said, the lightning to strike him is already on its way. Why are you asking this? Do you want to save him? After all, he was once his father's subordinate, perhaps there was still some affection. Amon, the silence was the night's color tonight. Amon, go save Medici. Even Amon himself couldn't think of such an absurd operation, and he couldn't help but be amused. Tang seemed to realize what he had said at this moment, and said with emotion. That's right, you and Adam tricked him so badly back then. How could you possibly save him now? Even if you succeeded in saving him, he wouldn't give you a good look. He went straight for Amon with a face-to-face ultimate move. It was no secret that these two had a notorious reputation in the Fourth Epoch. Antigonus being driven mad actually had factors of their behind-the-scenes pushing. After all, everything is a necessary sacrifice, isn't it? Amon's slightly mocking voice came again from an unknown direction, just like what you did to Rosal Gustav, to Klein Moretti, everything is a necessary sacrifice. And you're so sure that your choice is correct? Do you really believe in such a future and intend to put it into practice for this, even if it means betting the source castle that is within reach? Lord of the Mysteries, for you, is a position you can reach out and touch, right? Tang raised an eyebrow, and nodded without hesitation at the remark filled with sarcasm, which was just short of saying, you're not a good person either, and, it's hard to say what bad intentions you're harboring behind the scenes. Right, everything you said is right. After all, I've always been like this to the destined person I chose. Klein is like this, and Rosal is like this. Tang threw a small stone towards an area of ground nearby, covered by the scarlet moonlight. In that area covered by the moonlight of the scarlet moon, in the backlit area of an inconspicuous stone, a translucent insect with 12 segments was instantly smashed into a pulp by the stone Tang threw. That translucent insect exploded. As a time worm that had split from a mythical creature's form, it was crushed into meat paste by a stone, unable to recover its Beander characteristic. Honestly, you guys are really similar, especially this tone. You really have the potential of an audience. Why don't you try competing for that position? Amon's voice didn't stop, as he didn't just hide one clone here. I am very satisfied with my current state, and temporarily not interested in growing 5 heads. After throwing the stone and killing a time worm, Tang shrugged helplessly towards the unknown direction, as if he had done nothing just now. He raised an arm to support his chin and said with some annoyance, the 5 paths of omniscience and omnipotence are completely hostile to my boss. Even if I were to snatch the uniqueness of these 5 paths, or the sequence 1 Beander characteristics, to hinder the resurrection of the primordial god, this would most likely be the result of my boss dancing on his grave. If I don't snatch it, you're mocking me here. If I go snatch it, you're unhappy again. Moreover, Celestial Worthy hasn't had any effective movements for a long time, especially around him. Inferring the process from the result, occupying the apex of the thief and fool paths, and maximizing the containment of Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun's resurrection methods, this might also be an arrangement of fate in the unseen. Amon let out a laugh with unknown meaning regarding this. Tang, however, changed the subject. Speaking of which, are you interested in becoming my blessed? He asked leisurely. I can bestow power upon you, allowing you to return to the sequence 1 level even without a Beander characteristic. This way you gain power, and I don't have to spend time dealing with you. A win-win choice, isn't it? Are you trying to deceive a thief who was once most skilled at deceit? Amon's figure gradually appeared before Tang. A wide forehead, a thin face, wearing a pointed black soft hat on his head, a magician's robe of the same color, and in his left eye socket, he wore a monocle carved from crystal. 1,000 years of time had not left a trace on this blasphemer. He was still young, looked cynical, carried deep malicious fun and a mischievous personality, and harbored a considerable amount of malice. This former Angel King seemed to have been persuaded by Tang's sweet words, emerging from the hidden corner under the scarlet moonlight, meeting Tang's gaze. Amon pinched the monocle in his left eye socket. You seem very interested in me. Aren't you quite interested in me too? Tang smiled slightly, especially when you couldn't help but want to parasitize me, wanting to steal my thoughts and memories, but due to your spirituality's warning, you forcefully stopped. Amon's lips curled slightly, he whispered, yes. The next moment, Amon's expression froze. Tang looked up at the blood moon above, and it was as if he saw through the blood moon to the spirit world completely overlapping with reality, saw the boundless gray fog above the spirit world, and saw that magnificent palace. Behind Amon, a giant clock suddenly appeared. The clock was dark green and mottled, and the hands symbolizing time, composed of 12 segments, were rotating counterclockwise. The buzzing sound of this rotation echoed, and it seemed that within the entire backland, one could hear this striking, like a doomsday announcement, bell sound. Mr. Error, Nicholas Flamel, is attacking. Tang chatting with this guy for so long wasn't just out of boredom. Amon's body was as if frozen. His body, in the rapid passage of time, gradually turned into one time worm after another with 12 segments. Those insects wanted to break free and leave, but were firmly fixed in place by the dark green mottled clock behind Amon. Amon's projection in Euclidean space was instantly disassembled into things composed of countless complex concepts. This is one of the Beander abilities of an observer. Things in front of an observer will be disassembled to the greatest extent possible into mysticism models that can be disassembled and reassembled. Deep in the spirit world, in a place even higher than the 7 pure lights, Mr. Error, at the head of the long bronze table, tapped the surface of the long table, looking leisurely at the scene of Backland's East Burrow presented before him. This echoed the Amon model observed in Euclidean space. These two formed a connection at the mysticism level. If you can observe, you can interfere. If you can interfere, you can manipulate. Mr. Error straightened his black silk top hat. Using the time worms that had merged into this gray mist as levers, he leveraged a portion of the Source Castle's power. With the Source Castle's high sequence symbolizing the highest beings of the 3 paths of mystery, combined with the effects of error and fooling, he attempted to use Amon's clone, using symbolism to reverse locate the main body of this blasphemer. Thus, all of Amon's clones in Backland transformed into the figure of Nicholas Flamel wearing a black silk top hat and a tailcoat of the same color. This process of locating, fooling, substituting, was rapidly spreading along Amon's mysticism symbols, expanding outwards from Backland. Wherever the gray fog reached, with the help of the Source Castle's high sequence, the set of tricks Amon had previously used against Nicola, the clone regional network, was no longer effective. Tang's expression remained unchanged. He stood still and waited patiently for a moment. After the Amon before him gradually moved the monocle in his left eye socket to his right eye socket, he asked, "Have you located it?" Amon shook his head, parasitized a sequence 3-level clone, but can no longer continue. After knowing that we can utilize the Source Castle to a certain extent, the connection between Amon's clones, and between clones and the main body, is getting weaker and weaker. He should have already disassembled most of his Beander characteristics by now, with the main body belonging to each high-sequence clone, and each high-sequence thief, through his manipulation, should be equivalent to his main body, and at the same time equivalent to his clone. The concepts of clone and main body were quietly deceived by Amon. How can killing the main body be considered killing a clone, and how can killing a clone be considered killing the main body? Similarly, locating a clone cannot locate the main body, and locating the main body cannot locate a clone. When locating that sequence 3 clone, because Nicola was looking for the main body, that sequence 3 clone naturally became Amon's main body, and could no longer proceed. From a mysticism perspective, Amon's main body has indeed been parasitized by Nicola. Amon ran faster than a gecko shedding its tail. This makes it so that even with the help of the Source Castle's power, when dealing with Amon, the connection between each high-sequence clone is not strong enough to reach the level of clone symbolizes the main body, because all high-sequence Amons are both the main body and clones. I think, even if we catch his sequence 2-level clone, it will be difficult to use this clone to catch all of his sequence 2 clones and completely lower his sequence. Tang didn't feel discouraged. He nodded, seeming to have expected it. That's right, Amon is just that cautious. Tang didn't expect to easily resolve Amon with a surprise move using the Source Castle like this. Otherwise, how could he be called a blasphemer? I suspect Adam created quite a few fake Amons for Amon. Even if one sequence 2-level Amon is found, that one is probably just a figment of imagination. Tang smiled. After all, Adam is still alive. And, I also suspect Amon still has the ambition to covet the position of Lord of the Mysteries. Seeing Amon look over in confusion, Tang said lightly, "Don't forget, there is still an Angel King. Mr. Door is the Angel King of the Door pathway, which is also one of the three paths of mystery, and the only unexpected factor that Tang cannot fully control at the moment. After all, Mr. Door, Bertrand Abraham, has been imprisoned by Black Night Goddess and Lord of Storms for 1,000 years, and he himself has long been corrupted by the fallen Mother Goddess. But there is no need." Amon frowned and said, "Of these three paths, Diviner and Thief are with us. The sequence to Beander characteristic of the Door pathway is already equivalent to what we possess, as the Abraham family joined Miskatonic with important sealed artifacts. Mr. Door is the Angel King of the Student pathway, fully possessing three sequence 1 Beander characteristics and uniqueness. Amon has no reason to transfer to the adjacent star key. Furthermore, under the current circumstances, the return of Mr. Door, Bertrand Abraham, is bound to face extremely severe obstacles. Amon is only sequence 2. Even if he becomes the star key and successfully advances to Door, he will be difficult to contend with us who possess the Source Castle. Even if Door returns, we can, with the help of Black Night Goddess and other gods, forcefully reclaim the three sequence 1 Beander characteristics and the Door's uniqueness, bypass Amon, and once again achieve Lord of the Mysteries. Amon has no need to compete with us. His chances of winning are small, and the risks he takes are completely disproportionate to the rewards." This, Tang thought for a moment, and gave Amon a polite but not elegant smile. "Everything you said is correct. Amon, that expression of yours, like, what you said makes sense, but I'll do what I think. I always feel like something bad is about to happen. Has Brooks arrived?" Tang changed the subject, with no intention of explaining whether there was any other information hidden within the words he had just spoken. Amon took out a black silk top hat from somewhere and replaced his pointed soft hat. He let out a long sigh. As for his marionettist sometimes making pronouncements like a diviner, who makes people want to beat him up, Nicola was quite well adapted. What's the point of him, a dead person, caring so much, really? Regarding this, Amon, who had the spirit of a wage earner, which is to say Mr. Eyre Nicholas Flamel, nodded. He adjusted the monocle in his right eye socket, then said, "He has arrived in Backland. Shall we reclaim the Red Angel now?" Yes. Tang nodded. "After getting the last Conqueror Beander characteristic, we will go to Marora and exchange feelings with 001. Incidentally, see if we can directly abduct 001 from the Knowledge and Wisdom God Church. The City of Exiles Marora, the place where the Knowledge and Wisdom God Church guards the sealed artifact, 001, the Red Priest Pathway's uniqueness, the Godfall Banner, also known as Salinger's Blood Banner. Speaking of which," Tang rubbed his chin with his finger, "this thing should also be considered ours, right? It shouldn't be too much for old man Salinger to give his grandson a little meeting gift or something, right? Besides, this is his old man's inheritance." Tang felt that it was not a big problem for him to inherit it. Amon, beside him, fell silent. He couldn't possibly respond to that. You're about to nail down the lid of his coffin, and at this moment, you suddenly say you want to inherit his inheritance. Are you really not afraid of your grandpa getting up from the coffin? Truly grandfatherly love, grandsonly filial piety. The blood moon in the sky did not fade away just like that. Backland, Queensborough, Civilis Street, number 29. Raft Pound, startled awake from his sleep, looked in horror at the ceiling densely covered with corpses reflected in front of him. Every single corpse had his face. Chapter 284, 283 Red Angel Evil Spirit. Everywhere above his head were people, everywhere was him. Having just opened his eyes and been startled by such a scene, Raft Pound, whose sleepiness vanished in an instant, screamed in terror. His miserable, sharp cries seemed to travel far, but the surroundings remained silent, as if Raft Pound's neighbors were all in deep slumber and sweet dreams, belonging to a different world than Raft Pound, who was in a nightmare. Raft Pound couldn't care less. He practically scrambled off the bed, crawling awkwardly onto the floor. His calf hit the wooden bed frame due to extreme fear, and the sharp pain told him this wasn't a dream, this was real. Interrogation, murder, silencing, but Raft Pound had no time to spare. He crawled towards the room door on all fours, terrified. At this moment, the bedroom door quietly opened, and from the dark corridor outside, a person also wearing pajamas walked in. Raft Pound, scrambling and crawling, had a pale and terrified face. He lifted his head and saw the person who walked in. Their clothing, appearance, and face were exactly the same as his. Exactly the same as those Raft Pounds hanging on the ceiling. Ah, ah, ah. Saliva dripped from the corner of his mouth, and Raft Pound's pupils rolled upwards, revealing the whites of his eyes. He fell to the ground with a thud, foaming at the mouth and convulsing, clearly having been scared unconscious. Oh dear, Tang's voice came from behind the Raft Pound, standing at the door. This oblivious, uninvited guest bypassed the door and entered the bedroom. He looked back at the large full-length mirror placed at the door that had just scared the guy unconscious, and shook his head with some amusement. Descendants of the Tudor family are this easily scared. When I read the original work, I thought this guy had something special about him, but I didn't expect his psychological fortitude to be so average. Even if he had something special, he wouldn't be able to withstand being scared like this. Amon stood outside the window, and at this moment, passed through the wall and entered the room. Tang looked at Amon, who said, "I've checked, there are people monitoring, but their monitoring is very casual, no need to worry about them." "That's good," Tang nodded. At this time, in the large full-length mirror reflecting Raft Pound, the Raft Pound, in the mirror stretched out his hand, and his hand passed through the mirror surface. The Raft Pound, in the mirror grabbed the collar of the foaming Raft Pound and dragged him into the mirror world. The scene presented inside the large full-length mirror instantly became deep and profound, like a passage connecting to another world, fluctuating with an unclear appearance inside. Not long after, a Raft Pound emerged from inside again, and he was clearly not the Raft Pound from the real world, but the mirror person of this Baron. The newly appeared Raft Pound respectfully said to Amon and Tang, "Mr. Eggs, Mr. Flammel, this person will still be handled according to the previous method, right?" "Yes," Amon smiled and said. He glanced at the marionettes disguised using the faceless ability hanging in midair and shook his head somewhat helplessly. With this method of scaring people, even a demigod would be hard controlled for a few seconds. How on earth did Tang come up with such a malicious, door-kill trick? Alright, now that this uncertain factor has been dealt with, let's go find the Red Angel. Nicola looked at the blood moon outside the window. "The Black Knight Goddess asked me to tell you that the Star Realm is temporarily fine, and the movements of the Ring of Destiny are still unclear for now. The fallen Mother Goddess should also not be planning to do anything. Tonight's blood moon seemed to be just a backdrop for what the Ring of Destiny and the High-Dimensional Overseer were going to do." Tang clapped his hands, looking through the window at the blood moon that was slow to recede. Then, the two disappeared, and Raft Pound lay back on the bed, closed his eyes, and fell into deep slumber. William Street, number 8, underground. The sleeping residents above were not awakened by the arrival of the visitors, they were still deeply asleep. In the underground passage, Tang walked at the forefront. At this moment, he was wearing a crystal-carved monocle in his right eye socket, and his body began to change as he walked forward. A wide forehead, a thin face, wearing a black pointed soft hat and a medieval magician's robe of the same color. Tang used the extraordinary ability of Faceless to transform himself into Amon's appearance. After doing this, Tang stretched out his hand somewhat uncomfortably and pinched his monocle. The monocle reflected the slightly dark passage, looking surprisingly harmonious. It seemed like something was still missing. After a slight thought, a smile appeared on the corner of Tang's mouth, looking somewhat eerie. "Ah, this is more like it. Conqueror." Brooks carried a lantern and followed his marionettist forward. "Are you going to deceive Medici?" Brooks asked. Tang pinched his monocle, paused upon hearing the question, and with Amon's face, nodded to Brooks with a faint smile. "Yes. After all, with the information intentionally blocked, he probably doesn't know that Amon has been pretty much scrapped by me. Taking advantage of this information gap, it's a good opportunity for me to digest the potion." Cryptic servant. The key is both cryptic and servant. I've done about 70 to 80% of the servant part, but I'm still a bit lacking in the cryptic aspect. The classic scene, Trickster Klein, scaring the Red Angel Medici to death, how can I not relive it? It's just that Klein at that time was really just bluffing, but he might not be. A bit lacking. How much? The corner of Brooks's mouth twitched. He looked at Tang, who was wearing Amon's appearance and seemed quite at ease, and remained silent. "This is completely just your bad taste coming out, isn't it?" With Tingen City looking like that, in 2 to 3 weeks, the portrayal of the cryptic aspect of the cryptic servant will only be higher, not lower. But I am the embodiment of deception and mischief now. Tang grandly found a reason for his actions. Brooks was very sincere. Whatever you say is fine. As the two walked into the underground ruins of the Fourth Epoch Tudor Empire, Tang had already transformed the poisonous snakes and all sorts of underground creatures here into his marionettes. They quickly reached the hall with a distinct Fourth Epoch Tudor style, conforming to the Tudor asymmetrical aesthetic, saw several doors, and saw the 6 statues of divine human figures that could be called blasphemous. Tang commented with a tisk tisk as he passed through the middle door in the hall and entered a passage wide enough for 4 people to walk side by side. The light of the lantern dimmed considerably after entering the passage, and a faint, almost imperceptible smell of blood was added to the air. Tang continued to walk forward without hesitation, and Brooks followed silently behind him. After walking for a while longer, there were stone doors on the left and right sides at the end of the passage. The one on the right was half open and had been filled with mud and rocks. Tang glanced over, confirmed there was nothing inside, and ignored it. He pinched his monocle, adjusted his state, and then, wearing a Mon's appearance, looked to the left. At this time, Conqueror, Brooks, who was holding the lantern behind him, stepped forward and opened the stone door on the left for Tang first. And the moment the stone door opened, inside the stone door, 2 beams of light suddenly shot towards Tang. Brooks didn't try to catch them, while Tang simply reached out his hand, and 2 playing cards were held steadily between his fingers. Tang flipped the cards over and casually glanced at them. Oh, the Red Priest card and the Witch card. 2 of the blasphemy cards once created by Rosal the Great. After glancing at these 2 playing cards, Tang put them away, and then, as if nothing had happened, walked into the stone door on the left with Brooks. Inside the stone door were many completely rotten corpses, leaving only fragile white bones, as well as many extraordinary characteristics scattered on the ground, emitting a strange cold light but not forming sealed artifacts. They had no value. Tang casually glanced at them and then shifted his gaze, not paying much attention. He didn't stop and looked at a pair of bloody double doors that seemed to have undergone some strange change with their arrival. Inside the door was a place formed by blood and war mist, which could not be observed through normal means. Tang narrowed his eyes. The right eye covered by the monocle quietly changed from a dark, deep black to a color with brilliant light. He quickly scanned the scene inside the large door, and then his eyes returned to their original state, without attracting anyone's attention. I didn't expect it, little crow. After I was trapped here, you would be the first one to come find me, and you even brought such a, The owner of the voice seemed to be observing, and then, a chuckle was heard. Einhorn's little brat, heh. Alistair Tudor, that lunatic is indeed dead too, his characteristics even dropped out, tisk, really useless. Brooks was a marionette formed by the never-ending theater during the Fourth Epoch 4 Emperors' War period, captured by the theater. During that period, the Red Priest pathway was almost entirely controlled by the Medici, Einhorn, and Sauron families, and the high-level Beyonders of the Red Priest pathway basically came from these 3 families. It's not surprising that Medici knew Brooks's identity before he became a marionette. Einhorn's Conqueror, another voice, slightly different from the initially mocking voice, came from behind the bloody double doors. This should be the voice of the ancestor of the Einhorn family, another spirit integrated with Medici and Sauron. Sauron, Einhorn, Medici, their 3 sequence ones were captured by Alistair Tudor, forcibly killed, turned into evil spirits, and remained in this ancient ruin of the Fourth Epoch, imprisoned and sealed. Tang's fingertips slightly rubbed the 2 blasphemy cards in his hand. He habitually pinched the monocle in his right eye socket and asked. Looks like you've integrated quite well. After so many years, you still have your sanity and haven't truly gone mad, Medici. Heh, who knew? A slightly lazy voice interrupted the words Tang was about to say. All right, stop pretending, you're not Aemon, right? Tang's hand pinching the monocle paused, and Brooks was also a little surprised. How did you tell? Tang wore a Mon's shell, and he considered himself to have dealt with Aemon for so many years, so he shouldn't be recognized at a glance, right? How to put it, it's me, heh, who raised that ungrateful little crow with great effort. How could I not see the difference between you? I just didn't expect that crow to really be plucked, and now he's even lost his uniqueness. And your disguise is really too poor. How did you digest the potion? Red Angel Medici's slightly mocking voice sounded in Tang's ear. Good, good, he cursed both him and Amon. You hunters are really good at offending people. Tang couldn't help but chuckle twice. Brooks. It has nothing to do with him, why is he also getting shot? Alright, Tang shrugged helplessly, but he didn't take off his monocle or change back to himself. What, are you that afraid to show yourself, always talking to me with someone else's face? Seeing that his identity had been exposed, and the other party still had no intention of revealing their true self, the mist of blood and war deep within the bloody double doors seemed to drift outward slightly. Quote. Ah, if you say so, I have no objection. The best way to deal with provocation is to give up. Tang had a way of dealing with such people, just don't accept the provocation. Besides, I've helped you quite a bit, haven't I, Mr. Sauron Einhorn Medici? Always being sarcastic in your words, that's not a good habit. Seeing that Amon's shell was completely useless, Tang could only change his approach. Medici, tisk, marveled, saying with a tone of, you idiot, your foolishness makes me laugh, so, you're the one who brought those two strange playing cards to me. Compared to a crazy, terrifying evil spirit, Sauron Einhorn Medici's current state was more awake, different from ordinary evil spirits. You're not wrong to say that, Tang said. So, what do you want? Medici asked pointedly. There is never help without reason in this world. What do you want to get from me? Hunters, minds work fast, and yes, they are all old schemers. Shouldn't you hunters deduce what I want to do through various conspiracy theories, brainstorming, and so on? Tang, however, remained steady, asking with a smile, why don't we ask our Lord Red Angel to guess what I want? The voice paused for a long time, seemingly thinking about what he had that was worth a conqueror coming to cooperate with him. Then, Medici's voice finally sounded. Red Priest, Chapter 285, 284 Luck. In the cold, damp underground ruins, the smell of blood and rust intertwined. Tang stood before the bloody double doors, the monocle in his right eye socket reflecting a strange glow in the dim light. Your reaction is indeed sharp. As expected of Red Angel, one of the former 8 Angel Kings, Medici, who represents the Red of War. It's just that your luck isn't very good. The Red Priest pathway seems to have the ability to use guns, so is this the classic, Lancer's lucky? Tang pinched his monocle and smiled without speaking first. A cold snort came from inside the door, Medici's voice carrying clear mockery. Hey, you want me to help that kid from the Einhorn family become a Red Priest? Are you thinking too much? I'm just a poor, weak, and helpless evil spirit, wandering in these damned dark underground ruins for thousands of years, only occasionally able to go above ground to catch a breath. Medici's sneer continued, why do you think I, an evil spirit who has even lost my Beander characteristic, can help you? Tang blinked, revealing a meaningful smile. Ah, that's true. His tone suddenly shifted, his voice lowering. Hey, but I think, Your Excellency Red Angel, you must have other ways, don't you? Medici paused for a few seconds upon hearing this, but scoffed at Tang's flattery, his tone still full of provocation. Why should I help you? Just because of those two strange cards. This meant that he did indeed possess some insider knowledge, from having once wielded the uniqueness of the Red Priest pathway and surviving from the Third Epoch as an ancient angel. Perhaps there's also a small matter of our shared ideals. Tang said, you don't want to get out of here and give Adam and Amon a few punches to vent your anger. After all, as far as I know, Alistar Tudor becoming a Red Priest in the Fourth Epoch had Adam and Amon's involvement behind it. Do you really not care about this? Or is it that the former commander of the Red of War, after dying and transforming into an evil spirit, doesn't even dare to think about revenge against two angels who aren't even gods? Speaking of this, Tang deliberately paused. If that's really the case, I'll have to change my plan and give up on the possibility of your help. After being screwed over so badly, with such deep hatred, it's impossible not to seek revenge, right? Host, you're really good at stirring things up. Brooks. Who exactly is the provocateur? Hearing Tang's words, Medici's voice from inside the door suddenly turned dangerous. Reverse psychology won't work on me, kid. This guy saw right through Tang's trick and quickly changed his tone, calming down his indeed provoked emotions. He said lazily, I'm just an evil spirit. What do I need such great hatred for? I'm quite comfortable staying here and don't plan to just go out and be used by someone like you who hides their face. Maybe there is. Tang fiddled with his monocle, covering the eye behind it. which had once again become brilliant from its previous dark, deep color. At the same time, Tang's voice became increasingly soft, and his words even involuntarily carried a hint of a smile, giving System and Brooks goosebumps. For example, after leaving here, pray sincerely to your lord. Your lord was dismembered by the gods then, dying so miserably. Ah, let's not talk about the matter of you being tricked by Adam. After so long, are you so sure your lord can still live so comfortably in the fifth epoch surrounded by gods? The wind angel, the cherub, the white angel have always been coveting your lord. The apocalypse is coming, your excellency red angel, are you really not going to help your lord? Are you planning to let that great serpent protect your lord, using his luck to let your lord continue to live on precariously and luckily? This touched upon Red Angel Medici's loyalty to the ancient sun god. Witches die for love, hunters die for loyalty. Why is the concentration of the two disaster pathways so high tonight? Tang sighed helplessly in his heart. Red Angel Medici now hated Adam and Amon, but could still cooperate with them to a limited extent on some level. Tang had used divination to confirm the reason why Adam arranged for Medici to die at that time. Medici should have been corrupted by Disaster City, then, and Disaster City itself had certain issues, suspected to be related to the original god. The original god had revived within the ancient sun god, and both Celestial Worthy and the original god were pillars from the first epoch who had accommodated multiple source materials and thus lost control of their convergence tendency and perished. Combined with the witch pathway's apotheosis ritual, it was easy to guess that Disaster City had problems, and so did Medici, Original Witch, Alistar Tudor, Salinger, and other Sequence 0s and Angel Kings involved in the two disaster pathways. This made it easy to understand why Adam would trick an Angel King who was clearly on their side into dying at that time. Involving the source material of Disaster City, if there was a problem, it could indeed be called a necessary sacrifice, because Adam, who was only an Angel King, simply couldn't save him. Then, according to the progression at the time, Medici, who was now treated as a necessary sacrifice, would inevitably hate Adam and Amon, who arranged this matter. This was an inevitable development trend, but it would not affect the true creator. Medici should not know that the true creator and Adam are both parts of the ancient sun god, otherwise both Adam and the true creator would be included in Medici's revenge targets. Those abandoned by the Church of the Lord will abandon the Church of the Lord. This is utilizing information asymmetry, Tang thought. The most top-tier fraudsters can naturally use various innate and acquired conditions to achieve their goals. In the Euclidean space, the projection of Tang, standing next to the Red Angel, slowly put on a mask from the system space. Of course, to ensure he achieved his goal, dealing with hunters known for high conspiracy theories and strong information processing abilities, it was also necessary to lightly use the authority of Fool. Blind Stupor, activate. In short, let's first give this Red Angel a collective intelligence-reducing halo. Otherwise, this argument might convince Medici, but not necessarily Sauron and Einhorn. After all, those two don't believe in the true creator. Medici's vigilance was extremely high, but Sauron and Einhorn might not be able to completely resist the influence of the Fool's authority, especially since they had no faith in the true creator and lacked anchors for stability. As the semi-transparent mask was put on, the bizarre fluctuations interfered with the rationality of Sauron Einhorn Medici, who sat on the dark throne, surrounded by the war fog emanating white mist. In the real world, Tang pinched his monocle, maintaining a polite smile. No sound came from the bloody double doors in front of him for a long time, as if the three-in-one hot pot inside was arguing. Tang was waiting for the final result. It would be good if they could reach an agreement. If not, he would hang him up as a marionette. Host, aren't you going to just hang him up as a marionette? System was a little strange, that should be much faster. Didn't the host always prioritize cost-effectiveness? Why is he handling this so slowly this time? Of course, hanging him up directly is fine. Tang lowered his gaze, explaining in his heart to his system, which felt like it hadn't been updated for 1,000 years, this isn't a very important guy. Whether he's here or not essentially doesn't affect my plan. After all, with that door that could directly connect to the Superstar Dominator's star field, the acting and promotion rituals for the two disaster pathways wouldn't be an issue. Becoming a Red Priest was only a matter of time. Using Medici's status to contact 001 was possible, but not essential. And 001 was a uniqueness, and a uniqueness with a certain degree of activeness. As long as external pollution was isolated, it could be put into system space and the system could directly teach it how to behave. However, I found something on this guy. Compared to directly turning him into my marionette, it's more cost-effective to do a little trick with the pollution of fate. He hinted. For example, throwing him together with that Te Lisi kike or something. System was bewildered for a moment, then went silent. It seemed like a long time passed before Medici's voice penetrated the war fog and came out. What are you planning to do? This meant he was willing to talk. Tang tapped the bottom edge of his monocle with his knuckle. First, naturally, is to help our Excellency Red Angel escape his current predicament. This was the place where Alistar Tudor sees the uniqueness in 3 sequence 1 Beander characteristics, and there were arrangements to prevent evil spirits from escaping the predicament. Of course, for time worms skilled in deception and cryptic servants skilled in grafting, such arrangements were easy to break. But, this can be considered my first show of sincerity, Tang said, reaching out and pulling forward. Inside the bloody double doors, the Red Angel evil spirit seemed to suddenly discover something. The war fog suddenly churned violently, and Medici's voice pierced through, cold and wary. How are you going to? At this moment, the entire underground ruin trembled. What do you want to do? The Red Angel's roar exploded in the fog. He sensed that danger was descending. Tang seemed completely oblivious to the surrounding environment. Brooks stepped forward, his eyes turning pitch black, filled with a dark iron color that seemed to be full of blood and iron-bloodedness. The collision between war fog and war fog was silent. An earthquake undetectable by ordinary people was happening in a corner of Backland. The night watchers patrolling tonight had just sensed the movement and wanted to investigate, but were stopped by Anthony Stevenson, the Archbishop of the Black Knight Church stationed in the Backland Diocese, who had appeared here at some point. This old man with a clean-shaven face and deep eyes slightly tilted his head, as if listening to something. No need to go. The Archbishop's gaze cast far away, as if penetrating layers of buildings, seeing the struggle in a certain underground ruin in the distance. That was not something they could touch at their level. If they went, only they would get hurt. But, Your Excellency, the spiritual fluctuations there. A night watcher couldn't help but speak. Anthony shook his head slightly and said in a deep voice, "This is the goddess's instruction." "Yes, Your Excellency Archbishop. Inside the underground ruin. That is, of course." Inside the underground ruin, the figure Tang was dragging gradually became visible. Blood-colored armor, flame-like red hair, cold and emotionless eyes. This, Medici, was more complete, more powerful, and more empty and spiritless than the evil spirit inside the door. Like a marionette whose strings were being pulled, an empty shell wrapped in the names of fate, determinism, destiny, and future. That was Red Angel Medici. That was he himself. To let you see your own future. The Medici from the future history raised his hand, and purple flames suddenly ignited in his palm. A distorted, Feng Kuang force was rapidly polluting the entire underground ruin. The Medici inside the door's pupils constricted when he saw the historical void image that had been pulled out. This Red Angel, his voice wavered for the first time. Tang seized this momentary flaw. The light in his eyes under the monocle suddenly changed from the previous brilliance to a deep ocean as calm as an ancient well. He slightly raised his hand and snapped his fingers. "I wish that for the next 30 seconds, no one can see, disturb, intrude upon, or destroy this underground ruin." This was a miracle of a miracle worker. Tang made a wish to himself, using the authority of miracle to first block the gaze of a certain peeping Tom looking this way, and also cut off the gazes from other church forces and the royal family in Backland. Brooks charged forward, directly breaking into the bloody double doors and delving into the war fog that emanated from within. In the Euclidean space, Tang's projection appeared behind Sauron Einhorn Medici. He held the semi-transparent fool's mask and smiled at the evil spirit, who was in a trance and on the verge of losing control because he had already seen the future and was being impacted by pollution. "I wasn't timid this time. Just as you said, one should be open and generous, shouldn't they, Your Excellency Medici?" What exactly do you want to do?" The Red Angel evil spirit, who had seen and discovered certain things from the flood of countless information and was on the verge of trance and loss of control, gritted his teeth and asked. "An experiment." The war fog was blown away, and Tang walked in from outside the double doors. He glanced around, and after finding nothing of value, he looked at Sauron Einhorn Medici. "I originally wanted to see if you could use errors and loopholes, through mysticism connections, to directly affect Disaster City if you observed me, but it seems you can't do that yet. After all, you're just an evil spirit. Observe. Yes, observe. Tang looked at the future projection standing beside him, feeling a bit sentimental. I haven't used this move in a long time, Your Excellency Medici, you're really lucky. Sauron Einhorn Medici, thank you, I don't feel lucky at all. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.